Hear us now. I'm just waiting for the ads to finish. We've got about 2 minutes worth of ads left to run, and then it's over. And then we can.
Cool.
But they can hear us now, so if subscribers are here, they can hear us.
Neat.
So we can talk about stuff.
I hope everyone had a
things.
pretty decent Thanksgiving.
Oh yeah, we still got. We still got some stuff ready to go. I think honestly more dessert now than we also had birthdays to celebrate as well. So we ended up getting pumpkin pie, blueberry pie, cherry pie, and apple crisp, which is basically apple pie but just with a different crust. And even those last three still have about at most half still.
Sounds good.
Well, we're live. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hey. Are we balling?
I don't know if we're balling, but we're definitely live.
Yeah.
I don't see the Dave stuff, Revan, because in this version we don't have that stuff. I don't have sounds and stuff turned on for the light novels because I don't trust you guys. That's the long and the short of it. I just don't trust you.
Yeah.
Fair.
I
don't even trust myself.
What if? Same.
I don't trust chat with that kind of power where we're supposed to read. No, not at all.
It's I mean, unless it had to be a whole other
Also,
setup, or even on your.
We're not going to be doing this for very long. I think we've got a couple of days. We've got this week, next week, and then gaming, and that's it because we're going on break for the holidays.
Yep.
For Christmas.
At least for public stuff.
Yep. Crimbus. Yeah.
That doesn't mean that I won't be doing behind the scenes stuff. I'll still be doing behind the scenes stuff, but like,
Yeah.
Um, yeah. But anyway,
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Sounds good. Hope everyone had a good holiday. Includes all of you out in the chat.
Mm-hmm.
Hope it was relaxing for you. Or as relaxing as it can be. I know this year is sometimes a little or this time of year is a little crazy for some people.
A little crazy, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Oog.
Hopefully everyone's like been not got hurt over like Black Friday. Although more and more people do more online shopping nowadays. Anyway, safe bet.
I was gonna say people still go out for Black Friday. That's fucking hilarious.
I don't feel like there's really a point, honestly.
Nah.
I don't do Black Friday. I just wait for Cyber Monday. And then I grab my shit from Steam. That's what I did. I grabbed a couple of things from Steam that were really cheap.
I grabbed a game earlier from Steam, actually. What was the name of the game? It was
games.
Promo?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Like the HoloLife game? Chrono Gear. That's what it was.
So guys, I have for those who may have missed it during Anime Church, I have an update for Fat Dog. Wednesday, barring any issues, which hopefully we won't have, Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern, Overlord will officially go live. Overlord Abridged will be live officially. We uploaded it last month. We've just been waiting on everything to get done and processed, and we don't trust Katakawa. We're like, no. So we were waiting for the other shoe to drop, but it hasn't yet, and we're kind of just worried. But anyway, yeah. So that's where we're at. Good times, I think. Hopefully everything goes the way it should, you know?
Yeah.
Hopefully it all goes like it's supposed to.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Yeah, best of luck.
I'm not going to hold my breath on that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to hold my breath on that because Katakawa went after S.H.I.E.L.D. an hour before it premiered. An hour
before it premiered?
Hour before it dropped. Yeah, hour before it was scheduled to go live, they copyright struck it. Yeah.
Oh, I guess it was scheduled. Okay.
Yeah, because it was scheduled. Sorry, it wasn't an actual premiere. We're not doing premieres anymore. But anyway, yeah, that's where we're at. That's where we're at with that. Where are we at with the book? We're reading book today. Chapter 8. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. I don't remember the volume name. I just remember the chapter
13.
name. Sorry.
We're on 13.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah, I know that much.
We could collectively together we could piece together where we're at this time.
We could more or less piece it together, yeah.
Yeah, we were fine. We're just right at chapter 8. A lucky man.
We'd still be doing the same thing we did last week.
The same thing we did last week. Let's just talk more about
anything and everything.
Yeah.
Dude, oh yeah. I did a bunch of stuff in Raft this week because I just felt like jumping back in, and so I expanded out. Like I moved a couple of things up, and I expanded out the front of the ship on the first, second, third, and fourth floors. So yeah.
I've actually realized now that I've been going through and streaming like Pacific Drive and whatever, like this could potentially be another like Raft, like I wouldn't say to the same degree, but like Raft/Subnautica style thing, because it's mainly your car in the garage you're working on, and then you go out and do expeditions.
Gotcha. We did Peak on Friday. We were playing Peak. This is the first time I ever beat Peak.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Oh, you finally peaked?
Uh-huh. Yes, I did. And I survived.
Did you also collab with Leafy at one point? Because that was actually a big thing, like going on there for a bit. Every other stream she did was like peak collab streams.
No, we didn't play with Leafy. Though I do want to get the mod that lets you play with up to 8 people and get a bunch of us on together and just have mayhem. Yeah, that'd be fun.
That's how I did it.
So
way back when, I think before the newer stuff came out.
So Shem is reading today.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also happy to say I got my girlfriend into slime. She's now
That's
starting
cool.
the really good bits of season 2. Like the village is about to come under attack, or the town is about to come under attack. So Tempest is about to face its first challenge, and all
You're
the
sure
stuff
she's
that
not
entails
lurking in
after.
here, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we're at that part, so like this is not new
okay,
information.
okay. So you're not.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know.
We're like at that part, so the stuff I'm talking about isn't like information she's not aware of. Like she knows there's an imminent attack happening to Tempest, so she just doesn't know what it entails yet. But that's where we're at. So we're starting like the good stuff for that. I'm gonna have fun with that later. But yeah, we've been doing watch-alongs in my server for it for like the season 2 stuff, and she watched the OVA stuff as well. She really does like Diablo. She's a fan. I mean, for the 2 episodes that he showed up, yeah.
So
yeah.
far,
yeah. That's where we're at so far. But yeah, guys, we started working on. I've started scripting Slime 11 and episode 4 of Solo Leveling. So there we go. All right. Shim, go ahead and get started. We'll get into it.
Okay. Chapter 8, A Lucky Man. One day, about 2 weeks after Cliff's marriage to Alina Lise, I headed out into town with both Sophie and Roxy. Our goal for the day was to purchase birthday presents for Norn and Aisha. I decided to make their party a surprise, which meant we needed to make all the preparations as stealthily as possible. There was another reason why I dragged both my wives along on this trip, but we'll get to that later. We were in the middle of the harvest season by now, and the city was bustling with activity. Horse-drawn carriages were rumbling along the streets in all directions, and the vendors selling fruits and vegetables were all smiles. The food was cheaper at this time of year, but also fresher and tastier. The harvest festival was coming up soon too, as evidenced by the big wooden stage that had gone up in the middle of the city's central square. This wasn't the most elaborate of events. It involved campfires in the streets, big pots of stew with all sorts of ingredients, and a lot of cheap booze. People would gather around the fires to eat, drink, and express their gratitude for the Earth's blessings. There weren't any other major events that I knew of, no singing or dancing even. Still, as long as you brought out your own pot, you could get a big helping of the stew for free. Aisha had apparently taken advantage of this last year while I was away. She hadn't been too impressed, though. They sort of threw things in there at random, so the flavor wasn't anything to write home about. Hopefully I get the chance to try it this year, or try it for myself this year. If it was gross, that might be interesting in its own way. It's certainly lively these days, said Roxy, looking around curiously. Yeah, it always is. Lots of people come into town this time of year. Apart from the merchants moving in all directions, there are plenty of students out in the streets, peering into the booths and stalls. Sometimes we pass farmers pushing wheelbarrows full of vegetables, or adventurers squabbling about who had bumped into whose shoulder. Sharia was the largest city in the region, but it was only this noisy around this time of year. Also, I was noticing an unusual number of beast folk out in the streets. Most of them were tough-looking guys carrying broad machete-like swords. They had a festival of their own going on at the moment, as it happened. Linny and Persenna were both going into heat around the same time, so their bravest young fighters had traveled from all around the world to compete for them. This year, Linny and Persenna were going to be facing them head-on. I guess they thought about it was time to find themselves husbands. In a break with beastfolk traditions, however, they declared that they would be choosing their mates personally from among those who bested them. At a bare minimum, they wanted a sword saint, advanced tier mage, or A-rank adventurer. Furthermore, his fur needed to be glossy, his ears erect, and his tail straight. Oh, and he had to be both a savage warrior and a considerate gentleman. Their standards seem a little unrealistic to me, to be perfectly honest. Hopefully they find someone nice, just like me. On my right, I had Sylphie. On my left, I had Roxy, a woman on both sides. Every man's dream. Hey there, Miss Sylphiette, Miss Roxy. I got a proposal for you. And what would that be, Mr. Rudius? Go right ahead. How about we walk arm in arm? The idea had popped in my head suddenly, but it was sort of an extension of my previous thought. The real dream was to strut around with two women clinging to your arms, showing off how popular you were. I'd seen a few men like that in my previous life, and it always made me want to puke. But deep down inside, I wanted to be one of them. I wanted to do what they could do. Okay, sure. Sophie immediately grabbed my right arm. Roxy hesitated slightly and then took my left. They had come at last. I was risen. Now it was my turn to endure the people's jealous gazes, and how wonderful it felt. Looking around the area, though, I realized that the merchants were busy with their own affairs and the bespoke warriors were hurrying off to the university. Some of the students in the crowd were looking our way, but they averted their eyes quickly. I might have gotten a few jeers from local adventurers if we were in a tavern or something, but even they didn't seem bored enough to harass me on the street. Overall, I was getting much less attention than I anticipated. Still, I was deeply satisfied by the experience. Why, you ask? Well, my right arm was currently experiencing some pleasant sensations. Sophie was pressing a certain something against it, in a way she wasn't capable of before. Or no need to be coy, right? I'm referring to her chest. I, Rudius Greyrat, was walking through the town with a woman's breast pushed up against my arm. This simple fact was enough to fill me with joy. The once barren soil of my heart, bleached dry by a miserable adolescence, was blooming with life. I couldn't stay in this oasis forever. Soon enough, these pillowy clouds of pleasure would return to their rightful and more modest size, but that didn't make them any less real. They were the legendary treasure islands, and I had found them. And it wasn't just Sophie offering me this joy. Roxy on my left was also pressing her meager chest against me. Her breasts were small, but they did exist. I could feel their distinct softness against the muscles of my arm. They were meek enough to inherit the earth. This was truly splendid. I said a few silent words of thanks to the muscles on my own arms. If not for their hardness, I couldn't have fully appreciated I couldn't have appreciated this softness so fully. Ha ha! Don't be jealous. Heracles the bicep. You're truly wonderful as well. No ho 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 ho. I hadn't meant to laugh like that, but it happened anyway. As I've already mentioned, the purpose of our outing today was to choose presents for my dear little sisters. However, that wasn't my only goal. Just the other day, Lena Elise had already delivered the news I've been waiting to hear. I've softened them both up for you, Rudius. Just don't take them both out on or you just take them both out on a date, get a nice mood going, and then take them to a classy inn. That's right, my friends. Today was the day. I was going to sleep with both my wives at once. I was boiling in anticipation. Would I be able to satisfy them both? I couldn't wait to try. Rudy? Uh, Rudy? Sophie's voice snapped me back to reality. Oh, there's goes gravity. Whoops. I guess I was zoning out a bit there. You're drooling, said Roxy, wiping up my face with a handkerchief. Are you ready to eat already? I clearly needed to be a bit more attentive. I was hoping today would end with a threesome, yes, but I wasn't going to get sloppy about the date itself. We picked out Norn and Aisha's presents carefully, and after that, I was going to make sure they both enjoyed their day out. All this was equally important. Sorry about that, I said with a smile, renewing my focus on the task at hand. I guess I was just lost in thought. Picking the presents was our main activity for the day. We decided to look all around the city and take our time with the decision. Our search got underway in the workshop district. You can find all sorts of magical tools and implements in this area of the city. Of course, there were plenty of enchanted objects for sale in the commerce district as well, but those were largely tested, refined products that commanded very high prices. In the workshop district, you got a more eclectic mix, including prototypes and experiments produced by fledgling creators. For the most part, their effects weren't too remarkable. They were more like toys than anything else. But sometimes you dig through a pile of junk and find a masterpiece from an inventor who'd soon be famous. Or so Roxy told me, at least. One of her old classmates from the university had joined a workshop here as an apprentice, so she knew a few things about the area. Unfortunately, they'd moved to a different city at some point. Roxy didn't seem too optimistic about our mission. To be honest, I don't think we'll find anything those two would like here, she'd said, but she was browsing through the magical implements on display with great interest. Naturally, I wasn't expecting to find a suitable present for Norn or Aisha either. The reason I brought us here was to find a gift for Roxy. Although we were formally married, I'd never really celebrated that with her. She wasn't interested in a wedding ceremony, but we could still have a belated party. My plan was to combine that event with Aisha and Norn's birthday celebration. Roxy didn't know about that part, of course. It was also a surprise. She thought she was in on the game, but I was playing five-dimensional chess here. If she expressed interest in anything on sale here, I planned to sneak back out and buy it a few days later. Of course, magical implements could get very expensive. By now, our family's funding was coming from four main sources: Sophie and Roxy's salaries, the royalties from that scroll Nanahoshi gave me, and the money we'd earned from that labyrinth. particularly the labyrinth money. My inheritance from Paul, in a sense, could have kept me comfortable for a solid 30 years or so all on its own. It wasn't enough to let me lounge around for the rest of my life, but it was a very nice cushion. There was no telling when we might need to spend a whole lot of money all at once, so I was doing my best not to spend our cash carelessly. For a wedding present, though, I was more than willing to dip into my savings. Hell, if Roxy muttered, "I want to drive a Porsche," I'd get her one. There didn't seem to be any luxury car dealers in the magic city of Sharia, though, so I might have to settle for drawing their logo on Dillo's forehead. This pot that freezes its contents when you feed it mana seems handy. Maybe I should appreciate it. I get the feeling Aisha prefers cute things, honestly. Oh, you're right. I guess we shouldn't give her something she'd use at work. Watched Roxy like a hawk as she chatted with Sylphie. So far, I hadn't noticed her yearning for anything in particular. She seemed totally focused on picking a present for my sisters rather than finding something for herself. What do you think, Rudy? I think it'd be delightful to lick your face like a dog, Roxy. Can you try to take this seriously? You're the one who suggested this trip, you know? Of course, I was thinking about Aisha and Norn's presents as well, but the stuff for sale around here just wasn't their style. After a while, we moved to the Commerce District. Our destination was Sophie's favorite clothing store. I'd brought my current robe here, and it was my go-to place for finding presents also. Wow, you shop at some very fancy stores, I see. Roxy hesitated a little outside the shop, then looked down at her own robe with an uncertain expression. Should I be telling her there wasn't a dress code, maybe? Huh? Said Sophie. Is it really that fancy? She seemed genuinely nonplussed. As a general rule, she only brought her clothes at fairly expensive establishments. It wasn't like Sophie was careless with her money or anything, she just spent many years accompanying Ariel. You tend to pick up the shopping habits of your closest friends, I guess. I was sure she'd understood this place was expensive in some sense. It probably just seemed like the best option among the stores she was familiar with. Fancy is a relative term, after all. Well, no. I suppose the Grey Rat family can afford to shop here. It's just, I don't usually visit stores this nice myself, personally. Oh, huh. I guess it is fancy, kind of fancy then, Sophie said in a crestfallen tone, her ears drooping slightly. Um, Rudy, I'm not spending too much money, am I? Don't worry, Sophie. You're fine. Apart from anything else she paid for the clothes she brought out of her own salary. She didn't have any right to complain about how she spent her money. I really wasn't trying to imply that, said Roxy. I shopped at stores like this myself back when I was a royal magician in Sharon, and it seems like the perfect place to find something special for a birthday present. Oh yeah, right. It is a special occasion, so yeah. That's my teacher for you. She knows when to switch to the offensive. Better follow that up. You know, I don't think there's anything wrong with buying yourself some pricey clothes, really, I said with a smile. Sophie pouted at this. So you do think they're pricey after all? Uh, uh, slip of the tongue. I meant stylish. Stylish clothes. Uh, should we go somewhere else after all? The only other stores I know are even more expensive, though. That won't be necessary. Let's buy something here. Originally, Sylvie had barely owned any personal outfits at all. She started dressing up for me. I had no reason to complain about that, to say the least. The place was kind of pricey by my own personal standards, yes, but that was just because I'd gotten used to buying cheap stuff in my years as a wandering adventurer. I was willing to adjust my standards upward as long as we could still afford it, at least. The moment we stepped inside the store, an employee trotted over to greet us. I guess I made a habit of remembering their regulars in places like this. Well, well, if it isn't the Grey Rats. It's so very nice to have you back in our establishment. What can we do for you today? Oh, we're just browsing, I said. Looking to buy presents for two children, both about 10 years old. I see. Why don't you come this way then? Instantly, the clerk led us to a section of the store totally occupied by children's clothing. They train their employees well here from the looks of things. The kids' section wasn't any less fancy than the rest of the place. They had a wide range of outfits on display, including everything from casual wear to robes and dresses. Their 10th birthday was considered a very big deal, so people probably bought a lot of formal wear for kids around that age. My goodness, there's a lot of different styles. I'm not even sure how to start. Well, it's going to be winter soon, right? Maybe something warm would be good. Roxy and Sylvie started looking through the outfits immediately. It sounded like they were enjoying themselves. Quite a contrast with a certain redhead whose entire attitude towards clothing was, anything's fine. What do you think, Rudy? Asked Sylvie, turning back to me. Well, Norn's winter coat's getting a little small on her. She might be looking for a new one, I offered. The two of them nodded thoughtfully. Okay, maybe a coat for her then. But what should we do for Aisha? Oh, she was complaining the other day that her shoes were getting tight, said Roxy. New shoes! That sounds good. Let's see what we can find. Having narrowed our focus down considerably, we started browsing through the goods in earnest. Thanks to all the different options on offer, it didn't take long to find gifts that fit my sister's personal styles. For Norn, we settled on a brightly colored coat. For Aisha, we picked out a pair of boots that with a nicely stitched flower pattern. They were both sized a bit large, but it didn't seem like a problem. My sisters were both growing girls after all. With our main job accomplished, we took some time to wander aimlessly around the store. It wasn't like we had to limit ourselves to a single present, and more importantly, I was still looking for a perfect gift for Roxy, although I kept that part to myself, of course. These cloth corsages are nice. I wonder if Aisha would like them, I said, studying a basket of intricate little bouquets. Maybe. She does love flowers, said Sylphie. Yeah, I'm not sure if a kid would appreciate that sort of thing, though. Come to think of it, I don't really know what sort of things Norn likes. Good question. She doesn't talk about her tastes that often, not around me at least. Norn has somewhat boyish tastes, I think, said Roxy. She likes swords, armor, horses, that sort of thing. Wait, really? How do you know that? Well, I've been trying to get to know her better, so. Roxy abruptly stopped in her tracks, trailing off mid sentence. Her eyes were fixed on a certain outfit. It was a magician's robe, complete with hat, displayed prominently on display or a nearby stand. The robe was in an adult male size, so there was no chance it would fit her. Still, she stared intently at it, more specifically at the hat. After a moment, she took off her own hat and began to study it with a conflicted expression. It was clearly an old hat at this point. I had a feeling it was the very same one she'd worn as my tutor back in Buena Village. It wasn't exactly falling apart at the seams, and its black coloring hid some of the wear and tear, but you could tell it had been through its share of battles. After putting her hat back on, Roxy gingerly stretched up to her full height and took the other one from its stand. She spun it around, found a price tag, and grimaced. An instant later, she put it right back where it came from. Apparently, it wasn't cheap. With an audible sigh, she turned to rejoin us. It was clear she'd already pushed the matter out of her mind. Hey, Rudy. Or, hey, Rudy. Sylphie had sidled up to me at some point. Let's go with that. Sounds good. It sounds like we both had the same thought. We found Roxy's present. A little while later, we ordered Norn's coat and Aisha's boots and left the store. I'd also secretly bought the hat for Roxy. We'd be picking up the goods on the day of the party itself. The store promised to wrap everything up for us, fortunately. I was starting to really look forward to it. Finally, the three of us headed to the lodging district, where many of the local adventurers congregated. We'd been wandering across the city at a leisurely pace, so it was already early evening. This was about the time of day when adventurers would return from their labyrinth explorations bearing new prizes. It was also the time of day when parties running low on funds would start selling off their goods to replenish their cash reserves. Sometimes you could stumble onto a great deal if you know what you're doing. Still, magic items were always on the pricey side, and we honestly didn't have much need for them. This was more of a window shopping expedition. Or so I thought going in, at least. See, Sylphie? This is the kind of thing adventurers wear. Most people buy stuff like this when they need an outfit. Okay, I get it. But I don't wear stuff like this too often, you know? I'm not sure if it's going to work out for me. Or to work for me. I think this one would suit you, Sylphie. You're quite slender, so capes look good on you. Carried away by our conversation, we ended up buying Sophie a whole new set of clothes. It was the kind of outfit a mage knight would wear, complete with elbow guards. It wasn't exactly elegant, but it made her look like a novice adventurer, which I found painfully adorable. Now Sophie could go off on an adventure anytime she wanted. Not that she really needed to, or could, given her job. When she was working, Sophie usually wore a set of powerful magic items. She probably wouldn't get many chances to wear this. Thanks, guys. Still, she looked very pleased with the gift. By the time we were finished with our purchases, the stores in the area were starting to close. Shops didn't stay open all night, as a general rule. We spontaneously headed towards the nearest taverns and restaurants. Well, it felt spontaneous to Sophie and Roxy, at least. This was all going according to plan. I had actually made reservations in advance, anticipating the situation. We'd be eating at an inn targeted at S-rank adventurers. Elena Lise had recommended it to me as the perfect place to finish off a date. The food was good, the atmosphere was nice, the beds were big, and the rooms were nearly soundproof. Oh, I know this place. Grandma told me to take you here if we ever needed to make up after a fight. You too, Sylphie. She said the same thing to me. To my surprise, both of my wives recognized the name of the place. At the end of the day, it seemed we were all just pawns in Alina Lisa's game. Well, whatever. It's no big deal if they heard of it. Alina Lise mentioned something else to me, actually, continued Roxy. She said Rudy might take both of us here at some point with the intention of, well, you know. Yeah, she said that to me too. So that's what this is all about. Honestly, what are we going to do with you, Rudy? Sophie and Roxy looked over at me with narrowed eyes. However, I didn't see any real disgust or shock on their faces. Elise had done her job well. They seemed receptive to my plan. I owed that woman big time. Thank you, Elise. You're the best, Elise. Still, you did mention we'd be spending the night. I'm a little worried about Lucy. The objection was reasonable enough, but of course, I haven't overlooked that little detail either. Don't worry, Sophie. I entrusted her to Lilia for tonight. When I had explained the situation, she nodded seriously and promised me her full support. It was always nice to have dependable allies. It still feels a little wrong of us, but at least she's in good hands, I guess. Sophie seemed to think at least one of us should be with our child every night. A very understandable perspective, but I won't make any excuses for myself. Sorry, Lucy. I do love you, okay? Forgive your wicked, lustful father. Roxy piped up next. I do have school tomorrow, you know. Her job was important, of course, but this wouldn't be an issue either. We'll just wake up early and head back to the house before you need to leave. Do you think we'll be able to wake up early? I'm not sure I will. This is always exhausting for me. Don't worry, Roxy. I've got it. Well, if you say so, Rudy. Whew. It had taken a bit more convincing than I expected, but I got both their approval. All right then, dear. Be gentle with us, please. We'll do our best. See my adorable wives bowing their heads to me, I was ready to get right down to business. Of course, heading straight to bed wouldn't have been proper. We needed to have a nice meal, get a bit tipsy, and whisper some loving words to each other first. You gotta set the mood, you know? Accordingly, we started off things with a dinner at the restaurant that occupied the first floor of the inn. The food here was very good in its own right, after all. I wanted to make sure they both understood that lust wasn't the only thing I felt towards them. It was there, of course. But I also loved just spending time with them. When both of them were in the room at once, each of them could only get half the love that I could show them individually. I intended to compensate for that, though, or through sheer effort. Wow, this looks incredible. I don't think I've seen a meal like this too often. As plate after plate of food was delivered to their table, or to our table, Roxy and Sophie's eyes went wide with amazement, not arrangement. In the Northern Territories, raw ingredients were expensive and hard to buy in bulk, which meant ordinary meals tended to be a bit meager. But this was the season where food was most plentiful, and we were also in a very expensive restaurant. Among other things, we had a huge bowl of salad full of fresh, juicy vegetables, spicy soup packed with freshwater fish, and a glistening, well-seasoned black and blue steak. None of it was the sort of stuff you get to eat very often in these parts. In addition, the meal had come with a bottle of whiskey-like liquor with a rich aroma. This soup is delicious. I wonder how they seasoned it. Maybe oil infused with mustard. Sophie wasn't touching the alcohol, probably because of Lucy. She was entranced by the soup, though, and kept taking additional servings. I should see if I can find the recipe. Rudy, would you like to try it if I made some? Oh, sorry, that's Sophie. I should see if I can find a recipe. Rudy, would you try it if I made some? She tilted her head at me in a particularly adorable way as she asked this question. It really stoked my appetite, if you know what I mean. I'll gobble it all down and then have you as a side dish. Oh, come on, Rudy. Finally, we had dessert. It was actually a standard part of the meal at this place. Still, their offering wasn't exactly comparable to the more complex cakes and sweets you find in a place like the Holy Country in Millis. It mainly consisted of fruits that looked a lot like apples. I'd eaten these before, but they were much sourer than apples from my own world. At this restaurant, however, they chop them up into bite-sized chunks for you and immerse them in a gooey honey-like syrup. It tastes something like a candied apple or maybe a thicker variety of fruit punch. I was surprised about how much I enjoyed it. I would have expected apples and honey to taste more like sweet Japanese curry, but apparently I was mistaken. This is incredible. Roxy was particularly pleased by the treat, though. Her eyes shining with excitement, she shoveled it rapidly into her mouth. It seemed my dear teacher had something of a sweet tooth. Either that or the meager people had an ingrained preference for sugar. It's so good. I didn't know you could get anything like this in the Northern Territories. Either way, the joy on her face was very real. I was starting to worry she might have had an explosive foodgasm in the middle of the restaurant. Uh, oh. All too quickly, her dessert had disappeared. She stared down at her empty plate regretfully. Here, Roxy, you can have mine. As I pushed my share over to her, Roxy looked at me in shock. Really? Are you sure? I'd been enjoying the dessert myself, of course, but I enjoy seeing the look appear to lie on her face even more. Yeah, I'm sure. Here, say, I'm not a child, you know. With every bite I fed her, Roxy's face lit up, and she held a hand to her cheek in bliss. Made me want to keep going indefinitely, but sadly my share of the dessert had disappeared as well. We'd have to continue this next time we came here. Okay then, we've had a nice dinner, and I'm sopping them up with sweets. I think it's about time. You know, ladies. What is it, Rudy? Go ahead. I've actually reserved a room here, as it happens. Ah, this feels good. That was another line I wanted to say at least once. Right. Um, Roxy, I know we talked about this, but are you sure you're okay doing this with me? Yes, I think I'm ready for this. Let's do it. Roxy and Sophie nodded to each other, blushing slightly. This is going to be a night to remember. Legends of the University, number 8. The boss is loaded. Excuse me. Chapter 9, the party. We'd scheduled a surprise birthday party for a day when Norn would be staying at home and Roxy wasn't working. Sophie would usually have been at work as a bodyguard, but Ario had given her a special day off. All the preparations were complete. It was just a question of execution now. I got things started by calling Norn, Aisha, and Roxy to the living room. Hey, I got something in mind for today. How about you three come along? Oh, sorry. Hey, I got something in mind for today. How about you three come along? Come along for what? My sisters tilted their heads curiously. The main purpose of this outing, of course, was to get them out of the house for a few hours so that my accomplices could pick up the presents and get all the food ready. Of course, Rudy. I'd be happy to come. We'd planned all this out beforehand, so Roxy wasted no time in agreeing to the proposal. Little did she know that she was going to be surprised herself. Hey, Mom, can I go? Asked Aisha, turning to her mother. I've still got some work left to do. You were invited by Master Rudius himself. Of course you can go, answered Lilia. Aisha nodded happily. Norn, on the other hand, didn't respond immediately. She was looking over at Sophie with an anxious expression on her face. After a moment, she turned back to me and spoke up. You're inviting Roxy, but not Sophie? Huh? Said Sophie, jerking her head towards us. She seemed a bit flustered by this sudden turn into the conversation. Well, you know, I have to look after Lucy. Didn't you both go out with Rudius the other day? Are you really all right with this? Sophie glanced over to me uncertainly, but then she looked over at Roxy and seemed to hit on an idea of some kind. Uh, actually, this whole thing was my idea. Huh? What do you mean? Well, Norn, you haven't really warmed up to Roxy yet, right? I guess not, no. Yeah, and it's not much fun having that sort of tension in the house. I thought it might help you if you spent some time together, you know? It can't hurt to get to know each other better. Oh, I see now. All right then. Norn seemed convinced by this, but Aisha looked a little dubious. After all, she'd already gotten along with Roxy. I'd seen her bringing Roxy tea and snacks when she was up late preparing for the next day's classes. After a few moments, though, Aisha seemed to decide these details weren't too important. She shrugged her shoulders slightly and then smirked to herself. Please don't tell me she's figured it out already. So, that's that, said Sophie with a satisfied smile. You guys go have fun, okay? Okay, chorused my sisters. I appreciate your thoughtfulness, added Roxy. It had been a bit of a close call, but we'd gotten over the first hurdle. Preparations for this party were going to take some time. There were only 2 people to pick up the presents, cook the food, and set up all the decorations. To give them some breathing room, my goal was to kill time with the girls until early afternoon. However, I couldn't risk taking them to the Commerce District. There was a chance they'd bump into Sophie as she was picking up the presents. That still left the Lodging District, Workshop District, and the University itself, but I had a different idea in mind. Fishing, huh? The 4 of us were outside the city entirely. Out here it was quiet enough to hear the little stream below us gurgling softly, and the water was clear enough to see the fishes darting around beneath the surface. Yep, seems like a good family bonding activity, don't you think? I see. So Sophie wasn't completely making all that up either. Quietly chatting with Roxy, I started to unpack the fishing gear I'd prepared for this expedition. We didn't have anything as convenient as a reel or lure on offer, unfortunately. Our rods were simple wooden things, with lines made with braided spider silk, or giant spider silk. We also had floats made from radiata frog sacks, iron hooks, and earthworms for our bait. I've never fished before, said Norn a little nervously. Me neither, said Aisha. I always wanted to give it a try, though. Despite their inexperience, the 2 of them didn't hesitate to grab their share of the gear. Aisha quickly put the float on and hook on her line, jammed an earthworm right on there, and went running off towards the stream. Within seconds, she tossed her line in the water with an exaggerated motion. I was a little impressed despite myself. Was this really her first time doing this? Rudius, how do I put these on properly? Norn, on the other hand, was staring at her float and hook with an uncertain expression. I don't know either. I've never fished in my life, you see. In my previous incarnation, I've been a strictly indoors type of guy. I never gone fishing, and I'd never felt any interest in doing so. And of course, I'd never felt the need to try it out in this world either. When I wanted to fish, I could get them easily enough by freezing the water solid. Would you like me to teach you, Norn? Asked or offered Roxy hesitantly. It sounded like she had some actual experience. That was a stroke of luck. We could always have fumbled our way around by trial and error, but it was always faster to learn from someone who knew what they were doing. Yes, please. Norn ultimately took Roxy up on the offer, but she looked a little bit conflicted. The kid was a faithful member of the Millis Church. I had to assume she felt a little awkward around Roxy since she was my second wife. Still, it didn't seem like she actively hated her, not on a personal level at least. All right, now you try. Like this. That's right. You're good at this. Thank you. Roxy showed Norn the ropes patiently and politely. Norn returned the favor by listening carefully. It seemed like a good sign. I really wanted to get along, at least. Soon all four of us had taken our places along the stream. Roxy's experience was immediately obvious. She perched on a little chair I'd made with my earth magic. She squinted carefully down in the water, holding her rod firmly in one hand. When she sensed the slightest vibration, she pulled the rod up with remarkable speed. I hadn't seen her catch anything particularly huge yet, and she caught more fish than anyone else so far. Her pose and total concentration reminded me of a monk meditating on the mysteries of the universe. You're certainly good at this, You're certainly good at this, Miss Roxy. Well, yes. Back when I was on the road alone, it was important to find my own food whenever I want or whenever I could. Come to think of it, Richard used to catch us lots of fish when we were traveling together. Oh, was he a fisherman as well? No, he used his spear. He would just thrust it into the water and pull it back out with a fish on all three prongs. Norna had taken a seat next to her, and they'd been chatting on and off for a while. The conversation was still a little hesitant, but it seemed like progress. Oh, Norn, you got a bite. Pull up on it. Huh? What? Oh, okay. Uh, uh. Don't worry. It happens all the time. Let's put a new bait on. Norna was having some trouble staying focused on her task, though. This wasn't the first fish that had slipped away from her. Still, her expression was cheerful enough. She seemed to be enjoying her conversation with Roxy in itself. Or, hold on. What's the matter, Rudius? You haven't been hooking anything. On the other hand, Aisha was already producing impressive results. She lost a few pieces of bait, but she'd also brought home for 3 fishes. Don't forget our little bet. The loser has to do anything the winner says, no matter what. A little while earlier, I'd foolishly agreed to compete with her on who could catch the most fish. At present, my score was a big fat 0. That wasn't looking promising. We were both first timers, right? Why was she so much better than me? Okay, kiddo, just try to make it something I can actually do. Whatever shall I choose? Maybe I'll make you hug me all night long while whispering how cute I am. Oh, or you could teach me some of the stuff you do with Roxy and Sylphie. Yeah, nothing too adult, please. I don't want Dad getting angry at me. Hey, no fair bringing Dad up. I wasn't too worried, really. For all her outrageous teasing, she'd probably settle on asking me for a slightly expensive little trinket. That said, she wasn't losing to my little sister a problem in its own right. Wasn't it a bit too early for her to be surpassing me like this? Indeed, it was. I had my dignity as the head of this household, and I needed to defend it. It was good to be a beloved big brother, yes, but it would be, or was better to be a feared big brother. All right, Aisha, I'm taking the kids' gloves off now. What? Were you taking easy on me or something? That's right. From now on, I'm going to use my demon eye. Hey, that's not fair. Complain all you want. This is what I'm really capable of. By peeking into a second in the future, I'll obliterate every fish in the stream. A little smirk, I activated my demon eye of foresight and stared down at my float. Movement. No movement. The float twitched slightly. Fish! Thanks to my regular practice menu, my arms are strong and accustomed to swinging things up and down, and now I had the added power of my artificial hand to work with. No fish known to man could hope to resist me. With one quick, violent motion, I yanked my prey up out of the water. Yes, it's a big... My prey being, in this case, a large boot. Almost everyone in this world wore shoes and boots, of course, and this stream was connected to a river that flowed past the bustling magic city of Sharia. The inhabitants of this area used that river regularly to wash their clothes or fill their water buckets. Adventurers made use of it all along its length as well. Someone probably fell into it and lost their footwear every once in a while. All that said, Rudius, Aisha was looking at me with pity in her eyes. Perhaps I needed to change the way I looked at this. This thing wasn't a boot. Wasn't a boot at all. Yeah. It was starting to look like something else entirely now. Perhaps even a fish? Perhaps. It sort of looked like one in a way. And wasn't that good enough? Didn't that make it a fish in some sense? Indeed it did. This right here was a fish. Nodding to myself, I tossed the boot into my bucket. All right, Aisha, that's one. I'll catch up to you in no time. What? That was a boot, Rudius. I'm sure it looked that way to you, but it's actually a boot-like organism that lives in the water. I call it the bootfish. Not even creative. That doesn't count, okay? That really doesn't count. Reaching down in the bucket, Aisha grabbed my prize and hurled it back into the water. No! You're not supposed to throw trash in the river? Well, so be it. We'll just say that that was a catch and release. That boot was still a baby, right? Now that we've returned it to its natural habitat, it'll swim out to the ocean and come back nice and plump. Yeah, let's go with that. Yes, that's number 4. As I was pondering these matters, however, Aisha caught her 4th fish of the day. Maybe I wasn't going to win this battle after all. I'm sorry, Sylphie. Roxy. I guess my little Sylvie, my little sister's plaything tonight. That's it, Norn. That's the way. Pull it in. Pull it in. Keep going. Carefully now. Things were getting noisy out to my other side. I looked over just in time to see Norn pull home a fish. It was a big one, too, about the size of a colored carp. Yeah, I did it. I caught my first fish. Wow, look at it. It's a big one, too. Norn celebrated with a big smile on her face, and Roxy clapped her hands in delight. It was a heartwarming moment, putting everything else aside. I was glad we'd come. We kept it up for a couple hours longer, but once the sun started to sink, it was time to call an end to our expedition. Okay, everybody, I think it's time we went home. My sisters didn't take to this announcement too well, though. What? Already? I was hoping to catch just one more. Time flies when you're having fun and all that. I can understand how they felt. Still, the real fun was coming up a little later. Sorry, girls. Monsters might get sniffing around once it gets dark. You just blast them for us. We got Miss Roxy here, too. It was, if your point, the monsters in this area weren't much of a threat, even in groups. With both, however, or both myself and Roxy here, it was hard to imagine a scenario where Aisha could, or Norn could get hurt. That was no reason to give in to their demands, though. We'd be out here all night. Even if I hadn't planned something for this evening, I would have dragged them home about now. Sorry, the answer is no. We can always come back another day. You're just mad because you didn't catch any yourself. Hey, come on. If I got serious, I could catch all the fish I wanted. This was true in a sense. Maybe I wasn't the best with a rod, but I could always electrify the water or set off an underwater explosion. I definitely wasn't just being a sore loser. Anyway, the decision's final. Let's get going. All right. Okay. Before we left, I took a moment to freeze the fish we caught with my magic. We could bring them home for later. I thought about grilling them for a snack on our way back, but you're supposed to show up to a party hungry, right? Fish could wait a day or two. As we made our way back home, Norn and Aisha chattered happily, bragging about how many fish they caught and how big they were. Rox and I followed just behind them. Roxy had a look of quiet satisfaction on her face as well. Things had been awkward between her and Norn for a long time now, but I think today was a big step in the right direction. We're home. Congratulations! The instant we set foot inside the house, we were greeted by a burst of applause. It was a sparse but enthusiastic ovation. Sophie, Lilia, and Zenith had all been standing in the foyer, waiting for us. Zenith didn't join the clapping herself, of course, but I thought I saw a hint of a smile on her face. Huh? Nord let out a yelp, and Aisha froze up completely. Taking that as our cue, Roxy and I joined in on the applause from behind. Norn turned back to look at us, her eyes with wide in surprise, and murmured, Huh? A second time. She clearly hadn't figured out what was going on yet. All right, everyone, let's go to the dining room. Stepping forward with a smile, I pushed the confused Norton and a dubious Aisha forward. The dining room was full of simple but attractive decorations. There weren't any big banners hanging across the room or anything, but we did have some very nice flowers on the walls, and there were candles gleaming around all around the place. The table was covered in a very nice white cloth with plates and vases and flowers sitting on top of it. The drinks had already been poured, but there wasn't any food yet. They'd presumably be carrying that out a little later. The far end of the table, the customary seat of honor, 2 chairs sat snugly next to each other. I brought Aisha and Norn there and offered them their seats. Wait, but... Huh? What's going on? Norn still looked completely nonplussed. Ah ha ha, so that's what this is all about. Aisha, on the other hand, was smirking knowingly. The girl was sharp, all right. She must have sensed that we were up to something. After my sisters took their seats, Lilia helped Zenith into hers. Sophie and Roxy followed suit. Once they all settled in their places, I cleared my throat loudly and began to speak. It's been 7 years now since the displacement incident. It wasn't easy by any means, but our family's finally back together again. We lost our father, yes, and our mother's memories might never return. But I don't think Dad will be too pleased to be moped around forever. I paused for a moment to look around the room. And that's why I want us to try and smile again. When we can, at least. It might almost seem disrespectful in a way, but Dad wanted us to have a party once we made it home, you know? I think we owe it to him to have a good time tonight. This whole thing had been Paul's idea, in a sense. He'd even put it down in a letter for us. It was sad he wasn't there or here with us to see it happen, and also made my chest ache, to think about it. But for his sake, as well as ours, I really wanted us to enjoy ourselves. Norton and Aisha had their whole lives ahead of them. I didn't want them to be hung up on the past forever, of course. Giving a long, sentimental lecture wasn't the right way to set the mood that I was going for. We could save our memories of the painful, difficult times we've gone through for the darker moments we run into down the line. If nothing else, it could help to know I've been through worse before. Right now, though, it was time to look forward to the future. And so I cut myself off and lifted my glass. Cheers, everyone. Cheers. Everyone except Norn, who was still staring wide-eyed at me, quietly raised their glasses as well. Aisha was smirking even more widely than before. She'd obviously figured the whole thing out. In any case, I wasn't sure how well the toast had gone. My goal was to set a cheerful tone, but it ended up sounding a little emotional. That was no good at all. I need everyone smiling. Sylphie! Oh, right. I simply called Sophie's name, and she bent down to retrieve something from under the table. It felt kind of nice. We were operating on the same wavelength. A moment later, Sophie reemerged with two large boxes, both beautifully wrapped. She passed one of them to Roxy. They promptly rose from their seats, walked up to the head of the table, and handed the boxes over. Roxy to Norn and Sophie to Aisha. Happy 10th birthday, Norn and Aisha. Happy birthday. Neither of them seemed to understand at first, not even Aisha. But we're already 11, you know? This had to be the first time I'd ever seen that clever little girl look so totally bewildered. She might have figured out the general plan, but she clearly hadn't been expecting a present. This was exactly the expression I was hoping to see. Yeah, but we couldn't be there with you on your actual 10th birthday, right? I know it's a little late to celebrate now, but... Oh, sorry. With somebody else. Yeah, we couldn't be there with you on your actual 10th birthday, right? I know it's a little late to celebrate now, but Rudy said a year or so is no big deal. He did? Tearing up a little, Aisha clutched the box tightly in her arms. After a moment, she looked over to Lilia, who smiled and nodded gently. A big, happy grin spread across her face as she turned back to Sylphie. Can we open these? Of course you can. Aisha was moving before Sylphie even finished the sentence. Norn, who'd been looking from her box to me and back again with a stunned expression on her face, quickly followed suit. At first, they went at it vigorously, ready to tear the wrapping paper off, but then they both stopped, reconsidered, and took things more slowly. They untied the ribbons and opened up the paper carefully, trying not to rip it. It was a little eerie how synchronized their movements were. They didn't look that much alike, but sometimes you could really tell they were sisters. Ooh, it's a new pair of boots! What'd you get, Norn? Look, Aisha, I got a coat. The two of them compared their presents gleefully. It was nice to see we'd done a decent job picking out the gifts. My goodness, you both got very nice gifts, didn't you? Lilia, who had been watching from the sidelines with a smile, approached the two of them with Zenith at her side. Oh, Mom, look at this! Norn spread out her coat to show Zenith, grinning from ear to ear. She didn't react in any obvious way, of course. That made me feel a little down despite myself. Zenith had always been the type to get all worked up about this sort of thing. I still remembered how enthusiastic she'd been at my 5th birthday party and how proudly she presented me with her gift of a carefully selected book. And not for her condition, she'd probably be yelping with excitement with her daughter right now. Seeing her so expressionless made me sad. Of course, if she recovered and learned that Paul was dead, there's no guarantee she'd ever smile the way she used to. Still, it was painful seeing her like this. Not sad, not happy, just emotionless. But just as this thought crossed my mind, Zena smiled. What? The expression vanished quickly. It had only been there for an instant. Were my eyes just playing tricks on me? Did she just smile? No. Everyone had seen it. Lilia, Aisha, Sophie, and Roxy were all looking at Zine in surprise. Mom? And Norn, at whom the smile had been directed, was about ready to break down in tears. Zenith reached down and stroked Norn on the head and then did the same to Aisha. Her movements were even more gentle than usual. She was happy to see her girls growing up. Oh, madam, I'm so glad. Lilia softly wrapped her arms around Zenith's shoulders. Her face was as emotional as I'd ever seen it. With her usual blank expression, Zenith reached up and stroked her hands. Lilia had to bite her lip to keep herself from crying. At to bring Zenith to her seat, Lilia came back to offer Norn and Aisha another present. This is for the two of you, from myself and Miss Zenith. It was a set of handkerchiefs, beautifully embroidered with flower designs, one for each of them. Thank you very much, Miss Lilia, said Norn, accepting hers. It's beautiful. Aisha, on the other hand, hesitated. Probably had something to do with getting the same present as her sister. Mom, are you sure I can have one too? Yes, I'm quite sure. You're Paul's daughter too, you know. This seemed like a change. Hadn't Lilia spent years drumming the words, you're only a maid into her daughter's head? Of course, I still expect you to show Madame Norn and Mr. Rudius the respect that they deserve. Understood? Okay, Mom. I guess she's still Lilia after all. Still, despite what she was saying, I hadn't seen her badgering her daughter much lately, not even about her tone of speech. I had to assume she'd been thinking things over a little herself for these last few months. When Lilia returned to her seat, Zenith reached over to place her hand on her shoulder. Madam. Lilia squeezed that hand on her own and softly spoke the words, Thank you. It almost seemed like it almost looked as if they just held a wordless conversation of some kind. Roxy seemed particularly moved by that. As I was studying her face, though, someone tugged at my sleeve from behind. I glanced back to find that it was Sylphie. She was carrying a third box. That one wasn't for my sisters. Right. Can't forget the next part. Roxy. When I called her name, Roxy turned and blinked in surprise at the sight of Sylphie standing next to me with the box. Yes? Sophie spoke up from before I could. This one's from us to you, Roxy. What? Why? For what? It's a wedding present. Congratulations, said Sophie, handing the box over to Roxy before she could object. Go on, open it. Roxy did as she was told, and when she retrieved the hat from inside the present, her eyes went wide as saucers. Sophie? Rudy? Is this? Welcome to the family, Roxy. Welcome to the family, Roxy. Let's try our best to be like Zenith and Lilia, okay? The smile on Sophie's face as she delivered that line could only be described as angelic. In the face of its overwhelming power, Roxy bit her lip, looked down slightly, and squeezed the hat to her chest. After a moment, she managed to squeak out the words, Thank you, Sophie. I could see tears glimmering in her eyes. I wouldn't hear about it for some time, but according to Roxy, this was a moment she felt that Sophie had truly accepted her into our lives. With the main event behind us, the rest of the party went off smoothly. First of all, Lilia carried out a big cake. It was a fluffy sponge cake type of thing, although there wasn't any cream involved. Instead, there was dried fruit on the inside. The batter itself was on the slightly bitter side, but the sweetness of the fruit balanced out beautifully. I'd eaten cakes like this before, back in the Kingdom of Sura. They made one for my 5th birthday, and I seem to remember it being served at the party for my 10th as well. That brings me back. I wonder how Eris is doing these days. Wherever she was, I had to assume she was merrily chopping her way up through life. Maybe she could even gotten married like me. Nah, probably not. There wasn't a man in the world who could handle that girl. When I asked Lily about the cake, she explained that it was a traditional Surin treat. Many families had one every time there was something worth celebrating. Paul hated the taste, though, so he'd almost never made one. It was a little amusing to hear the man had been a picky eater at his age, but it did seem in character. Sophie had helped out with this cake and seemed confident she could make one herself next time. Everyone seemed to be really enjoying it, and I kind of liked it myself. Aisha was less of a fan, though. I could see her picking around the chunks of fruit as she ate her slice. Lilia scolded her a little, but undermined herself by murmuring, That reminds me of Master Paul, with a smile on her face. After a while, Aisha started cuddling up to me and was begging me to eat the rest for her. But I decided to hand the job off to Roxy, who apparently had a sweet tooth. I was sort of hoping they might end up feeding bites of it to each other or something. Unfortunately, Roxy took her assignment somewhat more seriously. I think she might have misunderstood what I was looking for. Listen carefully, Aisha. You're a very fortunate girl, so it might be hard for you to understand this, but sometimes when you are truly desperate, you might need to eat anything you can, even a poisonous scorpion. Ick! Right. My poor sister found herself on the receiving end of a lecture. I seem to remember getting a similar talk from Ghislaine at some point, actually. Maybe this was just something adventurers felt strongly about. I put up with some lousy food myself in my journey across the demon continent, of course, but I was fairly sure I'd never resort to eating poisonous monsters. Maybe I was fortunate, too. This cake, on the other hand, is sweet and delicious. It would be wrong to leave it unfinished. Eat it, please. Okay. Roxy's tone hadn't been too harsh, but her arguments were intense enough that Aisha actually looked a little freaked out for once. True to her word, she started eating her cake in solemn silence. It felt like the first time I'd ever seen her do it just as what she was told. Well, no, that wasn't fair. She did listen to me, for the most part. Anyway, now that I thought about it, getting past the picky eater thing probably was important. Maybe I was the one who had mishandled the situation. Good thing I had someone around to set things straight. Well done, teacher. That said, you don't have to force yourself to finish it if you're full or so full you can't take another bite. I'll eat the rest if necessary. Incidentally, Roxy had already finished all of her cake. Well done, teacher. I'm so full I can't take another bite. Aisha's reply had come quickly, too quickly. Were you even listening to me? Eat your cake. Maybe this is a good thing. Sophie and I didn't scold Aisha very often. I felt like Lilia was taking it easy on her because of that. Aisha was a very clever girl, but she was only 11 years old. She probably needed someone to lecture her from time to time. In any case, Roxy seemed to be getting friendlier with my sisters. Two of them weren't fighting with each other anymore either. And we'd just seen proof of Xena's condition, proof that Xena's condition was improving. I felt like our family had grown closer in general. The celebration was a success, in other words, and I enjoyed every minute of it. I made a mental note to throw an even more elaborate party with the girls turned 15. Legends of the University number 9. The boss is merciful to the fish, or to fish. Chapter 10, Workplace Drama. The temperature was dropping steadily week by week, and I started to see the occasional flurry of snow outside the window. It would soon be winter in the kingdom of Renoa. The winters in this region were long, cold, and lean. A typical household needed to start preparing right about now, or risk freezing to death. My family was relatively well off, so we didn't really have to worry about that. But just to be on the safe side, I made sure to stockpile a mountain of firewood in our backyard and bought our piles of preserved food in our basement. We're ready for anything at this point. All we had to do now was lock ourselves up in the house and wait out the snows. Pass the time by enjoying the company of my wives. But just as I was getting ready to hibernate, a certain someone from my past came back to haunt me. One morning, as we were eating breakfast, Roxy offered me a surprising proposal. Rudy, Sylvie and I are going out on a job tomorrow. We might be away for several days. I was wondering if you'd like to come along. Hi, Moon.
Hey.
If you're reading along or when you get the chance to catch up, we are a little bit into chapter 10.
Thank
if
you.
you want to follow.
Started.
Yeah. Good to hear from you, though.
Yeah.
Okay? Sure.
Oh, yeah, just been closing a lot, so
yeah, that's understandable. Well, welcome back.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Just kick back.
That's the plan.
Where was it? Yeah. Oh yeah, sorry, I'm right here. One morning, as we were eating breakfast, Roxy offered me a surprising proposal. Rudy, Sylvie and I are going out on a job tomorrow. We might be away for several days. I was wondering if you'd like to come along. To watch you do your thing? Roxy gave me a quizzical look. No. We'd all be working the job. There might be a bonus in it for us if we all performing well, or if we all perform well. I would have relished the chance to cheer her on from the sidelines, but apparently that wasn't the idea here. What kind of job? Well, it seems that a member of the royal family is currently on a pilgrimage. Evidently, this was a local tradition. When a Renoan royal approached the age of majority, they were required to make a journey around the country as a sort of training exercise. The journey itself wasn't anything too strenuous. They just spent 6 months or so going around and visiting a laundry list of specific places inside the country. However, they weren't permitted many guards, and were expected to make their own preparations and arrangements. It forced them to hire their own people, find their own way around, and see the country with their own eyes. Theoretically, this would help them grow into better rulers. Tradition was well known throughout the country as the coming of age pilgrimage. Of course, since it was so well known, the local mayors and governors were perfectly aware they'd have royalty traveling through their towns from time to time. In fact, they kept careful tabs on the age of every royal prince and princess, and made sure to anticipate the timing and itinerary of their journeys. It sounded a little creepy in a way, but they obviously didn't want a member of the royal family getting badly injured in their territory. No matter what the circumstances, such an incident would hurt their reputation badly. Local authorities would have gladly surrounded the royal kids with 100 bodyguards if they could, but they weren't permitted to do so. Would have defeated the whole point of the pilgrimage. However, when the royal family itself requested guards, they were allowed to provide them. This time around, a party of adventurers had been hired as an escort, but their mage and healer had both fallen ill simultaneously. They were expected to recover fairly soon, but the winter was fast approaching. Basically impossible to travel in this region once the snows got going, so they needed to finish up the pilgrimage now and hurry back to the capital. It just so happened that the party had been stopped in its tracks right here in the magic city of Sharia. As a result, the royal family had formally requested a handful of bodyguards from the city. Our mayor had held a conference with the leaders of the Magic Guild and the university to choose the most suitable candidates for the job. One such candidate had stood out at the head of the list. This individual was a well-traveled former adventurer with practical skill in offensive magic, and a brand new member of the university's faculty with few responsibilities to be reassigned. It was Roxy, in other words. The group had quickly decided she was the best option they had. It sounded like a reasonable conclusion to me, given her many talents. Wait a second, though. How did Sylvie end up getting this job, too? Well, Princess Ariel's coming along. She was very eager to establish a connection with a member of the royal family. Ariel had an excellent information network. She must have heard about the situation and marked it as an opportunity. It was hard to say how much of a connection she stood to gain here, but the princess always took what she could get. Ah, okay. So basically, you two will be guarding both Ariel and this kid? That's right. Oh, and Luke's helping too. I wasn't sure if he really counted, but decided not to say so. I think we should be alright, since Sophie's coming along. But we need to guard two very important people, and the shrine we're visiting is deep inside a forest. Also, I've been known to make some silly mistakes the worst times. I suppose I'm a little anxious. I think you're really underestimating yourself, Roxy. Well, maybe so. But I had a talk with Sylphie about how we could ensure this job went off smoothly, and she suggested we ask for your help. You're the single most powerful mage in the city at the moment, after all. Putting aside the question of whether I deserve that title, I can understand why Roxy was nervous. They needed to protect both Princess Ariel and this member of the Renoan royal family, and their core party was fairly small. One Renoan knight, Sylphie, Luke, and Roxy. There was also the band of adventurers, of course, but they were down to two people. They were down two people, and it was hard to know if they'd be much use at all. In terms of actually competent ally, Sylvie was the only person Roxy could definitely rely on. And come to think of it, Roxy hadn't seen her in combat before. I can understand her uncertainty. Is it is it okay for all three of us to leave the house, though? What about Lucy? She'll be fine, said Sophie, who had been listening quietly until now. We have Suzanne, and I'm sure Lilia will take good care of her. It was true enough. It wasn't like I'd be much use hanging around here, without these two anyway. Lilia and Aisha would be stepping up either way. It was more important to get Sophie back to Lucy as soon as possible, which meant the best thing I could do was join the party and make sure the job went off without a hitch. Okay then, I'm up for it. Having reached my conclusion, I agreed without further delay. Aside from anything else, Roxy would get a nice boost to her reputation if we pulled this off perfectly. Maybe it would help her move up the career ladder a little faster. The next day, Roxy and I made our way to a certain inn that mostly catered to Esric adventurers. It was a very nice place, even nicer than the one I take Roxy and Sylphie to a little earlier. As training exercises went, this pilgrimage seemed to be a bit on the luxurious side. Not that I expected anything less from royalty. Really? They have gardens inside the palace walls in Asura too? Oh, yes. So you have them in Renault as well then? We do. It sounds like they're rather similar, really. How very interesting. By the time Roxy and I arrived, Ariel and her party were already in the inn having tea with the Renoans. A girl who looked maybe 12 years old was sitting across from Princess Ariel. This pilgrimage was supposed to be a coming of age thing, so she was presumably 15, but she definitely looked younger. Sophie was standing behind the two of them, looking poised and intimidating in her work clothes. Luke was there too. There was an older female knight I didn't recognize, probably Renault and Princess's personal bodyguard. Who are you people? State your names at once. The instant she laid eyes on us, she stepped forward to place herself between us and her charge. Her gaze was challenging, if not openly hostile. It's a pleasure to meet you. My name is Roxy M. Greyrat, and I'm here to serve as bodyguard for the princess. I'm Rudy's Greyrat, and I'll also be helping out. Nice to meet you, ma'am. Oh, I see. I heard you would be coming. Or I heard you would be coming. My name is Grace, and I'm a royal knight. We appreciate your assistance. For a moment, the knight studied Roxy dubiously. In the end, though, she stepped back without making any further comments. She probably wanted to say something like, "You're obviously too young for this. What was the university thinking?" I appreciate that she kept that thought to herself, but I wasn't sure why. Maybe she was just a surprisingly tactful person? No, judging by that creepy little smile on Ariel's face, she'd probably given her a warning beforehand. It was a good thing, too. If the woman had burst out laughing and called my beloved teacher a child, I might have exploded on the spot, or caused an explosion. That would have ended Roxy's career prospects. We were told you'd hire a party of adventurers as well? Yes, they're all preparing for the journey at the moment. Or at the moment. Please wait here for the moment. Please wait here for the moment. All right. I started to move toward an empty chair, but Roxy headed over to join Sylphie and Luke. The knight returned to her former position, where she stood ramrod straight and perfectly still. It seemed like the princesses were the only ones permitted to take the seat at the moment. I'd have to stay on my feet as well. By the way, Princess Ariel, how long have you been staying in? How long have you been staying in our kingdom? Well, let me see. Not counting my journey, it's been a little less than 6 years. This country is essentially a second home to me, my Dao. Oh, doesn't that mean you'll be graduating next year then? What a shame. I only just got to know you, and you'll be leaving so soon. I suppose so, yes, but as long as our countries stay in contact, I'm sure we'll meet again. On another note, this Renoan princess certainly was a cutie. I did remember hearing that the royal family of this country was full of beautiful people. Apparently it was true. She was almost a match for Ariel. Not quite, but almost. Arrow sure worked fast, though. It seemed like they were already buddies somehow. For a while, I waited idly, letting the prince's conversation wash over me without really listening. How many times do I have to repeat myself, damn it? The sound of voices at the entrance snapped me abruptly back to reality. Look, just deal with it. Are you serious? Did you forget what happened last time? Those morons screwed up so badly, they nearly got Melanie killed. I'm not okay with this. What do you want me to do? We're not calling the shots here. That's not good enough. Are you really okay with this? Do you really trust some random stranger to watch your back out there? It's not like I want to, okay? The new arrivals stomped into the room, arguing loudly with each other. There were 4 of them, and they were all women. The one at the front of the group was a big, muscular lady. She reminded me of Ghislaine, but she was even more solidly built. Her body looked like it was chiseled out of rock. The second was a leaner woman who wore her dark brown hair in a swept-back style, exposing a cross-shaped scar on her forehead. She seemed agile and alert, and her sunken eyes suggested she'd seen her fair share of battles. They were both maybe 30 years old, and they both wore swords at their hips. It felt safe to say they were the party's front-line fighters. Appearances can sometimes be deceiving, but they sure looked like a pair of wily, skillful veterans. That made sense, given they'd been chosen to guard a princess. Incidentally, neither of them were taking part in the ongoing argument. That was coming from the 2 that followed them in. I know, right? I'd rather do this by myself than with people I can't even trust. The angry one was a younger woman with a sullen look on her face. She was more of a girl, really, maybe 15 years old. For the first 2, she looked like a fledgling, but they'd taken her into the party. She'd had to be good at what she did. The stash of carrot suggests she was a mage or healer, or possibly both. Look, you can't be the only one in the back line. I don't want to let anything get past me, but it's going to happen sometimes. And then there was a 4th member of the party. But more importantly, you've got to learn how to work with anyone if you want people to respect you. Adventurers just don't get the luxury of staying in the same party forever, you know. She carried a bow, not your typical weapon for an adventurer. Arrows couldn't match the power of a sword or spell, I'd spent years as a traveling adventurer, and I'd only met one dedicated archer. Gah. She was probably the only one in the entire region, come to think of it. I recognized her immediately, of course. The instant she stepped into the room, she saw my face. She stopped in her tracks and stared at me with her eyes wide open. Oh, it's you. She muttered the words softly to herself more than me. The sullen girl she'd been arguing with turned back and spoke to her dubiously. Sarah? Or Sarah? You know that guy? Well, yeah. It was the same adventurer I'd very nearly slept with some time ago. I hadn't forgotten Sarah, of course. I'm not sure if I could have if I tried. When I met her long after Eris dumped me, she was the youngest member of the party, Counter Arrow. She was a strong-willed, combative girl with a sharp tongue and a good head on her shoulders. Suzanne, the leader of her party, took a liking to me and started inviting me along on some of their jobs. Among other things, we fought a horde of monsters together and later ventured in an ancient underground fortress to gather Snowdrift skills. It took some time, but Sarah ended up falling for me. I was fairly sure of that, at least. It was hard to say exactly how I felt, or how I felt about her. Things escalated before I could really figure that out, and then my performance issues got in the way. I got drunk, acted like an idiot, and ran off to the nearest brothel for the night, and then I started bad-mouthing Sarah in public, which she overheard, of course. She dumped me on the spot. I was fairly confident it was a traumatic experience for both of us. Still, it had been quite a while since then. We'd gone our separate ways and lived our own lives for years now. I told myself it was in the past and that we'd never see each other again anyway, but it turned out fate had different plans. So now I found myself in an interesting position of working a job with my ex-girlfriend. At least we were professionals, right? Hopefully we could just focus on the task at hand. It wasn't like dredging on the past was going to do either of us much good now, surely. All right then. Why don't we get the food ready before the princes come back out? After some slightly awkward introductions, we formed ourselves into a party and headed out to a nearby forest where the shrine was located. Phew. Nicely done, girls. This was an easy one. Looks like those rumors about the professor who made it through the teleportation labyrinth were true, huh? Sorry, but I have to apologize. I really underestimated you at first. That lesson you gave me about splitting your focus between healing and offensive magic was so amazing, though. It's such a clean, simple theory, and you actually put it into practice. Thanks to my careful efforts, we gotten through the job without any uncomfortable incidents to speak of. It was going very well, or very, very well, in fact. Members of the Amazons, an all-female S-rank party, had been openly dubious about Roxy at first. Understandable, perhaps, given her appearance. The brat of the party had gone so far as to declare, I don't want to work with a kid with us right here in the room. However, once we left the city and got through our first few battles, their opinion of her did a complete 180. Despite the slapdash nature of our temporary party, Roxy played her role as a backliner to perfection. She cast her offensive spells with impeccable timing and healed her allies just as efficiently. Thanks to the time she spent exploring labyrinths all on her own, she was far more alert and skillful than your average mage. In fact, it sounded like she'd outdone their 2 missing party members all by herself. Understandably, they'd been barraging her with compliments for some time now. That made me feel all warm and fuzzy inside. Sometimes I had to resist the urge to puff on my chest and say, "That's my teacher, you know." Uh, hey, Rudy. Oh, sorry. I'll get the food going. I wasn't much use in those battles, but I can handle this. I'm actually pretty good at cooking. The only downside was that I had to dodge Sarah from time to time. She kept glaring at me as I was working on the meal. But it felt pretty clear that striking up conversation would only make things worse. Sometimes it's best to avoid your troubles entirely, right? Right. I was just doing my part to keep the mood positive. My discretion was the only reason everything had gone so smoothly. Alright, that wasn't exactly true. I hadn't contributed much of anything to the group. The Amazons were all highly skilled, and Roxy had snapped into their party perfectly. That left much for me or Sophie to do on our way to the shrine. Renault and Princess was currently inside the building itself with her personal knight, offering some sort of formal prayer. Once she was finished, we just had to make it back to the city and our job was done. Everyone would go home happy, and Roxy's reputation would take a big jump up, pushing her closer to her first promotion at the University of Magic. Of course, Sarah wasn't too pleased about the situation. She'd been staring at me silently for what felt like 10 minutes straight now. I couldn't blame her. People do tend to get a little surly when you completely ignore them, but I had to assume that dredging up the past would only make things worse. I was about ready to ask Sylphie, who was sitting next to me, for help, but she'd been awfully quiet for a while as well. In fact, kind of looked like she was also glaring at me. Maybe she was just worried about me. Maybe she was worried I was going to cheat on her again. Or maybe she didn't approve of the way I was deliberately ignoring Sarah. One way or the other, the silence was starting to get heavy. Like, painfully heavy. Black hole heavy. My skin was starting to itch. Finally, Sophie leaned over and whispered in my ear, "Why don't you at least talk to her, Rudy?" Well, it's not like I'd mind having a normal conversation with her. I mean, her attitude seemed pretty casual at first, but I loved to put the past behind us. I wasn't sure I could just laugh off those memories, though. The wound still felt kind of raw. Maybe I should have just introduced her to Sophie and Roxy right from the get-go, but at this point, she wasn't even trying to speak to me anymore. I should have done something before things got this bad. Now I had a hole to climb out of. Maybe I do need to say something. The more I thought about it, the more my policy of completely ignoring Sarah seemed like a mistake. All I accomplished was to piss her off. I could have always have kept the conversation completely businesslike. That said, it was a little tough for me to try and change my approach now. The biggest problem was that I basically had nothing I wanted to say to her. The only topics that came to mind were related to our past together, which would inevitably lead to a discussion of our ugly breakup. That would just put us both in a lousy mood. It might not be too pleasant for Sophie to hear either. Staying silent seemed preferable to that. I could always apologize for her for making things awkward once we made it back to the city. I was willing to endure some suffering for the sake of Roxy's promotion. Miss Roxy, would you mind teaching me a little more about magic before we leave the city? Please? Pretty please? It would be my pleasure. Thank you so much. Hey, is it okay if I call you elder sister? Huh? I suppose you wanted to. Yes! Thank you, elder sister. Things seemed so nice and happy to be on the other side of the group. I want to be part of that conversation. Maybe convince Roxy to try a little royal roleplay the next time we spend the night together. My throat's getting awfully dry. All of a sudden, Ariel had broken the silence on our side of the group. I looked over at her a little confused. We had plenty of water to go around after all. She stared back at me meaningfully. There was some nice yellow fruits growing a little way back, weren't there? I hate to be a bother, but I'd like to try those, Ariel continued, turning her gaze to Sarah. Would you mind picking some for me? Sarah looked a little suspicious about why this request had come to her, but shrugged and got to her feet. All right, let's see what I can do. Thank you. I suppose it wouldn't be safe for you to walk through the forest all by yourself, though. Rudius, Fitz, would you escort her, please? Oh man, so that's what this is really about, huh? I suppose the princess has gotten fed up with our awkwardness. This was her way of saying, go talk it out among yourselves already. I think Rudy can handle it himself. I'll stay here with you, Princess Ariel. To my surprise, Sophie had opted out. Oh, you think he'll be all right alone? It's fine. He's not the kind of man who hides from danger. Was that what I was doing? Hiding? Yeah, it was true. I had been hiding, both from Sarah and from our past together. But there was no need to keep doing so. I had Sophie and Roxy in my life now. My performance issues were a thing of the past. I had a family now, a daughter even. All right, it was time to stop acting like a coward. Sarah and I made our way back through the forest to the spot where we passed those yellow fruits. We found them easily enough and picked a few from the low bushes they were growing on. It was time to find a way to start the conversation. Sophie had sent me out here with her blessing. Couldn't chicken out now. Okay, let's reframe the situation. We're old friends who bumped into each other by random chance. Wouldn't it be kind of sad if we just did the job without even talking to each other? Yeah, that works. So, you kept going as an adventure, huh? It wasn't the world's greatest opening line, to be honest. What's that supposed to mean? Sarah's response was understandably curt. I couldn't let myself get intimidated, though. Deep breaths, Rudius. Wasn't like I'd meant to imply anything about her abilities as an adventurer. She knew that much herself. This was just the way she was, really. Well, Counter Arrow dissolved when Suzanne and Timothy got married, right? I've been wondering what you and Patrice were doing with yourselves, that's all. Do you know what happened to him? He joined a different party when we broke up. Don't know where he is now. He's probably still an adventurer, assuming he's not dead or crippled. Patrice had a frontline warrior in Counter Arrow, or had been a frontline warrior in Counter Arrow. He was an easygoing guy, but that was basically the only thing I remembered about him. What about you, Sarah? I bounced around a whole bunch of parties for a while. This group scooped me up right after I hit A rank, and I've been with them ever since. We spent some time now with the Amazons and the sound of things. Now that I thought about it, they were probably the single prettiest party I'd ever encountered. Their muscular leader had a beautiful face, and the sub-leader made that scar look good. The young mage was kind of a brat, but she was definitely on the cute side. And none of them could compare to Sophie or Roxy, of course. You know, I don't think I've seen an all-female party before. Yeah, well, there are a lot of them in the lower ranks, I guess, but once you get past rank C or so, everyone's looking for skill more than anything else, or for skill more than anything else. So it's not too common. Huh. I don't remember seeing any gender-based party on the Demon Continent, even in the lower ranks, but that place was kind of a special case. You know how strong the monsters were there. This is my first time in one myself, but it definitely has its pluses, let me tell you. Gets you priority access to some clients for... Oh, sorry. This is my first time in one myself, but it definitely has its pluses, let me tell you. Gets you priority access to some clients, for one thing, like this one. Yeah. I can see why you'd want a female party to guard a princess. It might be a little risky to entrust a pretty young thing like that to a gang of smelly, aggressive men. A lot of adventurers were one step removed from being street thugs. People did tend to be more professional at higher ranks, but an all-female party offered some reassurance that things couldn't go too badly. Not that women were or are always kind to each other, of course. It's also less stressful in general. Don't have to worry about all the romantic drama, you know. I smiled awkwardly at that one. I smiled awkwardly at that one. If I had ended up formally joining Counter Arrow and pairing off with Sarah, it would have been us making things awkward for the others. I also found myself thinking about the youngest member of the Amazons, though. Whenever we stopped for a break, she threw herself at the party's leader or sub-leader with squeals of affection. And once she realized how talented Roxy was, she'd been all over her. She had a habit of sticking her tongue out at me while squeezing my wife in her arms. No romance, huh? Really? Huh? Oh, her. Well, you do get girls like that, but it's just less of a problem, said Sarah with a shrug of her shoulders. It helps that nobody gets pregnant or anything, you know? Huh. Good to hear the party got along at least. Two of us did have some painful memories of our past, but with the sound of things, Sarah was enjoying her life just fine. I was happy for her, and a little bit relieved. Maybe. So, anyway, what about you? What about me? Oh, sorry, hold on. So anyway, what about you? Um, what about me? I heard you're married with a kid now, right? Sounds like you're enjoying yourself. Oh, who told you that? Suzanne. She sent me a letter a little while back, you know. Sarah's tone was starting to sound a bit accusatory. The whole reason that we'd broken up was my total inability to reform in bed with her, and here I was, married to two different women whose company I enjoyed on a regular basis. I could see how that would sour someone's mood. I've been suffering from a serious case of erectile dysfunction back then, but I wasn't sure Sarah even knew that. I didn't think I'd gone into that much detail with Suzanne. Also, it wasn't an excuse for my behavior. Whatever the cause, I ended up comparing the girl unfavorably to a prostitute in public. That was a hell of a way to treat someone who had feelings for you. Bumping into a jerk like that on the job would make the nicest person on earth kind of cranky, especially if they try to pretend you didn't exist. Well, I'm sorry, Sarah. What? I'm not asking you to apologize. With those words, Sarah jumped to her feet. Her face was flushed, her lips were pursed and trembling. Crap. No, I pissed her off. Maybe this was a bad idea after all. Okay, stop. Too late for that now. What am I supposed to do? Before I could find anything to say, Sarah spun around and sat back down with her back turned to me. I got up slowly, trying not to provoke her, and I stepped forward so I could see her face. She was staring down at the ground with a sullen expression. To my surprise, she looked more depressed than angry. Sarah? Yeah? What? I know you don't want me to apologize, but I'm going to anyway. The way we broke up wasn't the best, right? So I didn't know what to say to you, I guess. That's no excuse for ignoring you, though. I'm really sorry. Sighing wearily, Sarah looked up at me. Look, I just told you I didn't want an apology, okay? If she didn't want an apology, what did she want? I was starting to regret not asking Sophie for some advice back there. Mind if I sit next to you? Oh, won't your wife get mad at you? No, I'll tell her what happened once we bring the fruit back. Wait, so that's her? The sunglasses girl? Didn't Suzanne describe her in the letter? Nah, just mentioned her name was Sophiette. I mean, I didn't think she'd be a royal bodyguard, you know? So Suzanne had neglected to describe her beauty? Sheer negligence, really. I guess that explains why you two seem so friendly, though, Sarah continued. It's not just her either. The blue-haired demon girl's my other wife. What? Her too? Isn't that interesting? While Sarah pondered this, I gingerly took a seat next to her. As I settled down, I caught a whiff of her scent, still familiar from the brief time we'd spent together years ago. Neither of us said anything for a moment. This time it was Sarah who broke the silence. To tell you the truth, I was planning to come by your house while we were in town. Wait, really? Yeah, I mean, I've been meaning to apologize to you for a really long time. You wanted to apologize? To me? Yep. After you ran off, I found out about your, condition, and I realized what a jerk I'd been. I made you into the bad guy, right? Got all mad and pitched a big fit. Didn't even stop to think you might be even be hurting too. Or didn't even stop to think you might be hurting too. Even worse than I was. The memories were still uncomfortably fresh. I could hear myself, hopelessly drunk, shouting a bunch of stupid nonsense. I could see the rage and humiliation on Sarah's face as she confronted me. Those events had hurt me deeply, but I knew I'd hurt her too. So when Suzanne wrote me, oh, sorry. So when Suzanne wrote me and I learned you were in Sharia, I told myself I'd go see you. I knew this job was going to take us here, so I figured I'd take some time off to apologize, for the way I acted back then. But here I am snapping at you again, right? God, I can't stand myself sometimes. Sarah paused for a moment, then pressed her face against her knees. When she continued, her voice was barely audible. Sorry. I wanted to put an arm around her shoulders or something, but somehow it didn't feel appropriate right now. Instead, I hugged my knees to my chest. It's been a while now, I said. So, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think I was really in love with you back then or anything. Excuse me? The cause of my condition was this girl named Eris. We traveled across the demon continent together, but then she vanished on me all of a sudden. And that's when I met you, Sarah. I could tell you liked me. I didn't feel that strongly about you, but I guess I wanted to move on, Put the past behind me. To be honest, I was just using you. I paused to swallow, then continued. So, yeah, you really don't owe me any apologies. I assumed Sarah would be angry with me. I was fine with that. She told me the whole truth. She'd been as honest as she could. I felt like it was only fair to return the favor. For some reason, though, she wasn't angry. She was just staring at me with a look of surprise on her face. Wow, you really changed. Uh, have I? Yeah, back in the day, you never opened up to me like that. Never even pretended to. I guess not. You never talked to anyone this casually either. Or if you did, it was kind of forced and awkward. Wait, really? Yeah, you seem so much more natural now. Come to think of it, I wasn't speaking to her as formally as I used to. That probably had something to do with the way my mindset had changed. Back then, I was convinced that Eris had abandoned me. I was terrified of conflict and rejection. I was careful to speak as politely as possible. That way I wouldn't offend anyone. I keep them at a distance too. It was simple enough. I didn't want to risk getting hurt, but now I wasn't afraid anymore. Someone gave me a bit of confidence, I guess. Your wife, you mean? Yeah. After that night with you, I had that same problem for a couple years, consistently. Sylphie was the one who cured me. It was her first time, but she did everything she could. She even used an aphrodisiac on me, and she got it working again. I went into some specific detail. Sarah's face went red, but she listened to every word, even leaning forward slightly. Got a little embarrassing after a while. Maybe there was such a thing as being too open. So, if she did all that for you, why'd you go and grab a second one? Well, Roxy did just as much for me in her own way. As I proceeded to tell that story, Sarah listened with open curiosity, holding a hand over her mouth. From time to time, I thought I saw her nostrils flaring. When I got to the end, though, she looked a little sad. You know, I don't think I could have done anything like that for you, even if you told me everything back then. Maybe that's the reason you never really fell for me. Maybe it was. Sophie and Roxy both loved me, but I loved them even more. They changed my life for the better, and I'd fallen for them because of it. On the face of it, that sounded almost transactional, but or it was just a fact, though. They'd won me over by being there for me when I needed them. Maybe that was what distinguished them from Sarah. All of a sudden, Sarah jumped to her feet with a yelp of aggravation, putting both her hands. Oh, sorry. This is more like a. Ugh. All of a sudden, Sarah jumped to her feet with a yelp of aggravation. Putting both hands on her hips, she glared down at me. Look, let's get one thing straight right now. I might have loved you back then, but that ended the day you ran off. I mean, I did want to apologize for being such a jerk to you, but that's all. I'm not remotely interested in giving it another shot after all this time. After spitting all that out with some real vigor, she snored and turned her head to one side before continuing. And on that note, stop looking at me all apologetically. We're just old adventuring buddies, right? Try acting like it. There was a hint of embarrassment on her face, but at the same time she looked relieved. It had taken quite a while, but we finally gotten some closure. It was a little bittersweet, but I found myself smiling anyway. After our talk, I managed to interact normally with Sarah. My approach was a mixture of my Linnea and Persona mode with my Nanahoshi mode, with the overall intensity dialed down a bit. It seemed just about right. Sarah's performance also improved noticeably. She supported the party with remarkable skill, firing off arrows exactly where they needed most. In general, her role was to stand slightly back from the action and calmly direct the flow of battle. Remind me of the way Suzanne used to shout out friendly orders to the member of Counter Arrow. Sarah had a different style, but she always kept their young mage on target and in the right position. It was quite a contrast to the impulsive but talented kid I remember from the old days. Maybe having someone younger to look after had helped her grow more mature. Whatever the case, she was the very picture of a veteran fighter or adventurer by now. In the end, the princess's pilgrimage went off without a hitch. We had to fight out groups of monsters several times along the way, but none of them gave us any trouble. We made it back to Sharia without any injuries to speak of. Just like that, our job was done. Excuse me. The Renoan princess and her guards stayed overnight at their inn in Sharia, picking up the two recuperating adventurers, and then departed for the capital in the morning. They needed to make it back for the snow started to fall in earnest, so they couldn't afford to waste any time. The rest of us went out into the city wall to see them off. I don't want to go. I still have so much to learn about magic from my dear Miss Roxy. Control yourself, kid. Oh, I know. Why don't you just join our party, Miss Roxy? Don't worry. I'm sure everyone will be thrilled to have you. It's a very kind offer, but I'm happy with my job here. And I'm a married woman. That's no big deal. If you wander off for a while, he'll treat you like a goddess when you show up again. That's enough, Alyssa. Put a sock in it. Ah, okay. Before they left, the Amazons made a half-serious effort to recruit Roxy, but she gently declined. It was a good thing, too. If she showed any interest at all, I would have launched straight into my patented clinging and blubbering defense. Dignity was a secondary concern here. I needed my Roxy right where she was. All right, Rudius. Guess this is goodbye. Sarah was leaving too, of course. At first, I'd been horrified to see her here, but by now I was glad she'd come. I thought that talk had done both of us some good. Yeah, stay safe out there. You take care of yourself, too. Don't make your wives cry, all right? Well, I'll do my best. Start comparing them out loud. If you put one of them down to compliment the other, they'll remember it forever. Oh, yeah, okay. I'll make a mental note of that. You better. See you around. With that, Sarah punched me lightly in the chest and walked off. Pretty casual as farewells go. Sophie and Roxy and I stood just outside the city walls for a while, watching as the party made its way down the road. Just as they disappeared from view, Sophie finally spoke up. Rudy? Are you sure you want to let her go like that? What do you mean? I mean, you used to be in love with her, right? Oh my, it seems like there's been a slight misunderstanding here, Miss Sophiette. Nah, we weren't in love. We were a little awkward and confused together, that's all. Okay. Looking somewhat less than convinced, Sophie leaned over to study. Tell me something, Rudy. What is your type, anyway? Roxy's ears perked up a little at this, and she drew in close as well. It seemed they were both rather interested in the question. Would they be happy if I just said girls with small breasts? Felt like that might backfire badly. Good question. I used to have all these details worked out, like a girl this tall with that haircut and this body. I don't think I had it right, though. I paused for a moment to study Sophie and then Roxy. It took a moment, and then an answer popped in my head. It seems like girls who help me out when I'm in trouble get a special place in my heart. That put a big, goofy smile on Sophie's face. Oh, does that mean I'm special, Rudy? Obviously, you cured me of something I've been suffering for years. I'm very happy right now. I think you're the one who made that possible. Oh, yeah? Good thing I worked up the courage back then. Roxy was looking at me a bit uncertainly. Her expression read, What about me? I wrapped my arm around her shoulder and pulled her in for a hug. Of course you're special too, Roxy. She pulled me out of that house I was hiding in. Paul's death left me broken. I owed everything to her. Anyway, I guess that means there aren't any special or many special girls out there for me. No need to get too anxious, Sophie. I won't be picking up any more wives. I promise. At this, Sophie reached out to take my hand. Okay, but I'm just going to repeat myself for a second, Rudy. As long as they're special to you and you're special to them, I'm all right with it. I guess Sarah wasn't quite in that category, though. All of a sudden, I found myself remembering a red-headed girl who had been special to me once. I remembered her smile, how we'd struggled our way home from a far-off land, and how she wept when I nearly died. And I remembered that the last night we spent together. Harris had abandoned me, or so I'd thought for years. But a man who I traveled with and who I trusted deeply was convinced I was mistaken. What if he was right? What would happen then? Sophie? Yes? I'm not entirely sure about this, but I might end up breaking that promise again. That's all right. I didn't accept it in the first place, remember? Just make sure you bring her to meet me first. I'm not going to tie you down, but I'm not about to let you marry some girl who doesn't even love you either. Got it. That is a promise, okay? No mistresses or secret children. Don't hide things from me, unless you want to make me mad. Right. Okay then. Okay then. I'll be very interested to see what number 3 is like, assuming you manage to catch her. My sweet little Sophie was starting to develop something of a commanding aura. Not so long ago, she was modestly claiming that she'd just been lucky, and it seemed she found some confidence. That was a good sign. The girl has seemed a little anxious ever since she married me, and it worried me at times. All right then, I have to make damn sure I keep that second promise, at the very least. Legends of the University number 10. The boss is a hopeless womanizer. Chapter 11, Graduation Day. Hold on 1 second, water. Not long after Sarah left the city of Sharia, winter began in earnest, and I turned 18. My research was coming along steadily, and I managed to complete my requirements for the year at the university. I'd be a fourth-year student soon. Everything was going well. Alina Lise, on the other hand, was going to have to repeat the year. Unlike me, she was a general student, and her 6-month leave of absence had left her hopelessly behind. This didn't seem to bother her at all, but I felt a little guilty about it. She'd been helping my family out after all. Incidentally, Sophie also hadn't met her attendance quota for the year, but her grades were still excellent, and they took her role as Princess Ariel's bodyguard into consideration, so she ended up getting special permission to move forward. Sometimes it's all about who you know. Things were good at home as well. Lucy was growing fast. She had already lost interest in breastfeeding. Lately, she'd been eating baby food instead of nursing, and just the other day, she'd spoken to me for the very first time. She looked right at me and said, Woody. Apparently, I was Rudy to her, but not Dada or Papa or Mr. Bubbles. But nobody in the house called me any of these things, or those things, so I couldn't blame her. She was calling Sophie Mama, but that was because Sophie had deliberately taught the word to her. Perhaps I could do the same and change my name to Papa. Nah, there's no need to rush things. She was still a baby. When she got a little bigger, I teach her to call me Father Dearest. Or Father Dearest. Anyway, wasn't it a little crazy that she was talking already? Maybe we had a little genius on our hands. I know, it's perfectly normal. Some kids start early, some take a little longer. Sophie and Lily have been speaking to her constantly too. That probably had something to do with it. But look, when you see your kids start to talk, it just feels amazing, okay? There were some downsides, of course. Once she got even bigger, she might start saying stuff like, Don't wash my underwear with dad's. Nah. I was actually looking forward to that one for some reason. As our daughter was no longer nursing, Sophie's breasts had stopped producing milk. That was a real downer. I lost my chance to enjoy that sweet, exciting treat. They also returned to their normal, smaller size. I like them just fine that way, of course, but it felt a little like that moment when the timer runs out on the bonus stage. Alright. On a different note, we also ended our contract with Suzanne since we didn't need a wet nurse anymore. Still, I was going to try and stay in touch with her. She'd taken good care of my baby, and she'd helped me out back in the day. I wanted to repay her kindness if I could. Maybe I could look out for her kids if they enrolled at the university. It seemed likely that I'd graduate before that happened, but I could always ask Norm to keep an eye out on them for me. Norn and Aisha were in good spirits lately as well. They were always checking in on Lucy and cooing about how cute she was. The kid probably felt more like a little sister to them than anything else. At one point, I overheard them talking about the stairs. For the sound of things, they decided not to fight in front of Lucy. They seemed to have several other little plans worked out as well. They probably wanted her to look up to them. Lately, I hadn't seen them squabbling the way they used to. I guess some kids try to act more grown up when they got someone much younger than them in the house. It was a nice and unexpected side effect of Lucy's arrival. Roxy's first year as a faculty member seemed to be going smoothly too. I noticed a few general students looking at her in awe recently. Perhaps they were starting to understand her greatness, at least partially. My intention was to forcefully re-educate anyone who dared to mock her, but it sounded like the kids in her classes were listening respectfully. Hopefully it would stay that way. Seeing this routine was the same as always. When Norn was around, they'd eat meals together, and when Aisha was in the garden, they'd pull weeds together. Sometimes she'd squeeze Lucy's fingers gently and smile at her. That was the one big change. After Norn and Aisha's birthday party, Zenith had started smiling on a regular basis. Her smiles were small and subtle, but everyone recognized them for what they were. She still wasn't speaking, and her facial expressions remained very limited, but I wanted to believe she was making progress towards recovery. Today was graduation day. The university held its entrance ceremonies out on the campus, but the graduation ones were held inside. They installed a big stage in some massive auditorium I never set foot in before, where the 7th year students would receive their diplomas one by one. In total, there were only about 500 people graduating today. The university had over 10,000 students, so that number seemed oddly low. This class had probably started about 2,000 strong. Most of them must have dropped out over the years. It was easy to enroll at this school, but it wasn't so simple to graduate. In particular, advanced tier spells and combined magic were challenging to master. For those with smaller mana capacities, they could even be impossible. There were also plenty of people who had some talent, but decided that mastering the beginner tier spells were good enough for them. And then there were those who dropped out for various personal or financial reasons. Those of us in the special class had it easy, comparatively speaking. While most of the stage were occupied with rows of graduating students, the entire faculty was lined up on the other side of it. There had to be 200 or 300 of them in total. I hadn't realized just how many professors this place employed. I did explain why they had a whole separate building for the faculty offices, though. It was easy to spot Roxy in the crowd. She was the single shortest faculty member. Even at a distance, I could see that her eyes were shining with excitement. Incidentally, the general student body had today off. Kids in the other years weren't obliged to show up for this event or the entrance ceremony for the freshmen. In fact, they needed special permission to attend. Participating in these was supposed to be an honor that you had to earn. I was sitting on the edge of the student council's reserved seating area. All the council's members were there. Ariel, Luke, and the 2 royal attendants, and 4 other people whose faces I recognized, and Sophie, of course. It was always nice seeing her in her poised professional mode. Not too long ago, she had been indistinguishable from a boy in this outfit, but her hair was down to her shoulders now, and her body had grown subtly more feminine after her pregnancy. Somehow she managed to be cute and cool at the same time. I had to fight the urge to brag to strangers about her being my wife. On another note, though, for some reason, Norm was sitting in the last seat in the council or student council section. Was she a member now or something? I hadn't heard anything about that. She hadn't been working for them this year, but maybe she was joining up at the start of the new term. I didn't want to pry or anything, but hopefully she would tell me what the deal was before the year got underway. Representatives of the graduating class, Linea Adoldia and Persena Adoldia, step forward to receive your diplomas and your credentials as D-rank members of the Magic Guild. Linea and Persena had been chosen as the representatives of their years. They'd run wild for a while, true, but they ended up achieving an impressive academic record here. Of course, they were also princesses of the Doldia tribe, rulers of the Beastfolk. It seemed like the university preferred to bestow this honor on students of noble birth. When they had a commoner and a noble with comparable records, they'd pick the noble as the representative. It was a way to curry favor with proud people without causing any real problems. I assumed things would go differently if a commoner were the best student of the year by far, but it was hard to say. Roxy had been an excellent student in her day, and they hadn't given her this honor. I had no way of knowing how skilled she was back then. It sounded like she was already capable of using Saint tier magic, and they still handed the role to someone else. The University of Magic made a big deal about accepting anyone who wanted to enroll there, regardless of their background, but the people running it were only human, and they clearly had their biases. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Congratulations. May you walk the path of magic all your days. Linea and Persena received their diplomas with poise and dignity. It was really something seeing them stride up onto the stage. They declared their intention to find boyfriends during this mating season, but when their many suitors had surged forward, they beat them down and tossed them aside one by one. In the end, they stood up together on top of the mountain of bodies, muttering, "What the heck? You got too strong," and "What a downer." Those memories flash back through my mind now, and those glorious moments, they were royalty, two queens of the jungle, invincible and untouchable. I also had some memories of them heading to a tavern afterward and shouting, "Meow," or "Meow, I'm done with men forever," and "Me too, guys are fucking losers," in a drunken stupor, but I do my best to forget those. After the graduation ceremony concluded, I stopped by Nanahoshi's laboratory, where I found her wrapped up in something like a thick bathrobe, coughing and wheezing constantly. "Did you catch another cold, Nanahoshi?" "I guess so. For the last year or so, the girl had been getting sick on a regular basis. It usually involved a hacking cough or sudden fever. I did clear them up for her with detoxification spells whenever it happened, but they always came right back before too long. Have you considered taking slightly better care of yourself? Getting out a little?" In general, Nanahoshi almost never left her rooms. She'd emerge when something major happened, but other than that, she spent the entire year holed up in this place, only popping up for lunch. For breakfast and dinner, she relied on her stockpiles of preserved food. The vast majority of her time was spent alone in these rooms where the sunlight couldn't reach her. It was no surprise that her immune system wasn't doing too well. I understood she had her priorities, but I felt like she needed to start taking her health more seriously. "Why don't you at least rest up until that nasty cough goes away?" "I can't stop working now. I'm making so much progress with the research lately." And with that, she turned back towards her magic circles. She wasn't wrong. The research was coming along nicely. She completed the second phase of her plan several months ago, successfully summoning a cap that fit the bottle she had obtained in phase 1. At the present, we were on phase 3, summoning a living thing, like a plant or animal. That was a big and exciting step forward. We weren't far from bringing vegetables from our old world into this one, and we were getting closer every day. "We're going to keep working on the stage 3 experiments today. Shouldn't we wait until Cliff and Zenova are available?" "I suppose. Why don't you go find them then?" I shook my head. "Unfortunately, they're not on campus today." "What? They're both off?" "That's unusual. Do you know why?" "Today's graduation day. No one has any classes." "Graduation day? Ah, is it that time of the year already?" Nanahoshi grimaced as she spoke the words. For her, they only signify the passing of a year, another year she spent trapped in this world. "Yeah, Linnea and Percenta got their diplomas and everything. Sounds like they're heading back home, so I was thinking we could throw a farewell party soon."
All right, just a heads up, when we get done with this chapter and we get to chapter 12, that's where we're going to stop, okay?
Okay, yeah.
Yep, cool.
Yeah,
I
thumbs up.
technically should have stopped you at this chapter, but
Oh.
fuck it, too late.
Okay, that's fine. I'll keep
going.
reading. I think I'm
Just
almost
keep
done.
going.
Yeah,
You're good.
yeah. You'll be there, right? I suppose, yes. I don't know if Linnea and Percenta qualified as friends to Nanahoshi, but it was nice to know she was willing to come say goodbye. The girl was still a shut-in by nature, but she'd grown slightly more social than she used to be. I guess they'll be princesses again once they get back home. Or sorry. I guess they'll be princes again once they get back home. Weird, right? They certainly don't look the part. Can't disagree with that. I was a bit worried about the future of the Doldia tribe, to be perfectly honest. Hopefully they had enough competent people to keep things running. They ended up with a moron for a leader. Just as I was pondering this, though, there was a knock at the door. "Hmm? Come in. Pardon me. Coming in. Our new visitors." Oh, excuse me. "Pardon me. Coming in." Our new visitors were a spunky cat and sleepy-eyed dog, the very ones we'd just been talking about, as it happened. Linnea and Percenta strode into the room, still wearing their school uniforms. "Been looking all over for you, boss. Got some time?" Something seemed a little different about them, but it was hard to put my finger on it. Was it the way Linnea seemed a bit on edge, or maybe the fact that Percenta didn't have a hunk of meat in her mouth? I thought I sensed something like hostility in the air. It reminded me of the day we first met. Normally they would be saying something like, "Yeah, the boss is hanging out in a single woman's room again. Maybe I'll tell Fitz or Roxy." Maybe right about now, but this time they were all business. Was it time for another duel then? They wanted to settle the score before they left town? "Please, boss, we need this, man." They weren't saying much, but I could feel the weight behind their words. Their eyes were shining with determination. Maybe they didn't want to head back home as losers. They had their pride after all. "Well, all right then. I don't like fighting, but I'll make an exception for you two. It wouldn't feel right to turn tail now." "Okay then. Sorry, Nanahoshi. Sounds like I'm needed elsewhere." "Excuse me, what about our experiments?" Nanahoshi looked none too pleased about this turn of events, but before she could object any further, Linnea walked up and grabbed her by the arm. "You come too. This here's a special occasion. Yeah, we'll allow it. What? Hey, what's this all about?" It seemed they wanted Nanahoshi to serve as a witness to our duel or something. Not the best choice, considering she rarely talked to anyone, but these two weren't the kind to think stuff through that thoroughly. Then again, the name Silent Seven Star was relatively well known in the world at large. Her testimony would have some credibility, at least. The four of us made our way to a spot midway between the dorms and Nanahoshi's building. There was a forest on one side of the road and piles of snow everywhere. It was unlikely we'd be spotted from a distance. Let's do it here, said Linnea, coming to a halt. Ah, really takes me back, man, murmured Presena with a nod. This was the very spot where Zenobia and I had ambushed and kidnapped the two of them several years ago. It was the place where I'd fought them for the first time, in other words. Or, in other words, it felt like an appropriate choice of venue. Lenny and Presena were standing in front of me now. They were facing each other about 10 paces apart. For some reason, they weren't looking in my direction. Huh? Boss Nanahoshi, we want the two of you to watch this carefully. What are we watching? Lenny and I are going to find out which one of us is stronger. Oh, they were dueling each other? And why are you doing that? Nanahoshi asked, a bit exasperated. The one who wins will be the next leader of the Dodolia. Is that really necessary? Don't your people have two tribes, the Dodolia and the Adoldia? The place I'd stayed back in the day belonged to the Dodolia, but I thought I remembered hearing something about an Adoldia village as well. Did they not have a second leader running the place? Maybe the leader of the Dodolia was automatically the ruler of their entire tribe or something. Ew. We were planning to go back together at first, boss. Kinda reconsidered. It's a big fucking world out there, right? And there's more to life than bossing people around. We both got little sisters back home. One of us can just go back and teach them the stuff we learn here. Whichever of us is stronger gets to go back to be the boss. The other gets to live out the way they want. Interesting plan, and by interesting, I mean ridiculous. They certainly changed their worldview, though. What happened to all that lust for power? We were going to end up dueling anyway if we both went back, Mew. And if we fought in the Great Forest, the loser would end up with a fucking boring life. They'd make her marry the best warrior in the village or whatever. We're better off settling this here and now and then going our separate ways. Yeah, no feelings either way, you know? Ah, now it's starting to make more sense. They both wanted to be number one in the Great Forest, but if they fell short of that goal, they'd rather live elsewhere entirely. Somewhere, or maybe they could make it to the top there, if not back home. The plan had some holes in it, to say the least. I was dying to ask a few basic questions, such as, do you guys really get to make these decisions yourselves without talking to your folks back home? At the end of the day, though, it wasn't my place to dissuade them. They clearly put a lot of thought into this, and I could understand their desire to control their own destinies. Okay, I get it. I won't interfere or anything. Have at it, girls. What, you're going to help them out, or you're going to help them with their fight? You sure about this? Said Nanahoshi, her tone disapproving. It's fine. They're going to fight anyway, whether I'm watching or not. From what I could tell, Linnea and Presena were evenly matched. Unless they had someone to judge the outcome of the fight, there was a chance it might not produce a clear victor. Worse, they might overdo it and get themselves hurt. Our presence as spectators was a necessary precaution. Also, though I wasn't going to make a big deal of it, this was a duel, not a fight. They weren't angry at each other. They were competing for supremacy. We appreciate it, Mew. Thanks, boss. Linnea and Presena offered a few words of gratitude before returning their focus to the task at hand. They took a few long, deep breaths and then glared fiercely at each other. All of a sudden, they were emitting harsh sounds of a less than ladylike late nature. The air was thick with tension. It felt like the battle might begin at any moment. I activated my demon eye and noticed Nanahoshi slipping on one of the magic rings she used for self-defense purposes. We were about to witness a deadly serious battle between two beast folk, after all. There was no telling what might come flying our way. Presena, there's something I've been meaning to tell you for a while. I'm sick of your crap, Mew. Oh yeah? Well, I'm fucking sick of you. You used to toddle after me like a baby sister, and now you're acting like some kind of big shot. Yeah? I was practically your babysitter. Don't you remember that time I covered for you when you wet the bed? What happened to it? Or what happened to end all the doyo never forgets those who help him out, huh? I paid you back for that when I pulled you out of the river. How pathetic was that anyway? Or how pathetic was that anyway? So much for the Dolia tribe and their legendary swimming skills. That whole thing was your fault to begin with. Dropped that toy Grandpa gave you in the water like a moron. You're the one who made me drop it. Well, this was interesting. I never heard an argument so fiery, but so completely lacking in real malice. They were getting themselves worked up well enough, but I didn't hear the slightest hint of hatred in their words. You're a big dopey idiot, or big dopey doofus, Presena. And you're a stupid fucking idiot, Linnea. And now they were resorting to childish insults. You're a smelly jerk. You got stubby legs. What? Well, you're a fatty. I am not. In the end, Presena snapped first. That single word, fatty, I pushed her over the edge. She leapt forward at Linnea, pulling back her fist to strike a mighty blow. Linnea reacted with all the agility of a panther lashing out with her own fist. After they ended up hitting each other with a double cross counter. And they ended up hitting each other with a double cross counter. Dude, that picture is beautiful. Let's see. The two of them staggered back, and then the duel began in earnest. Oh my. Excuse me. Oh my. Persona charges fiercely forward, but Linnea sidesteps it cleanly. Persona is driving it at her like a tank, but she wards her off. Linnea is keeping up with the hit and run tactics, folks. Persona's hot on her tail. Persona has the edge in power, and her opponent's just a little faster. If it comes down to a slugging match, Linnea's got no chance, but power isn't the only thing that counts. You gotta catch her first, or your strength is useless. Look at that footwork. A beautiful jab. And another. And a straight. Wow. Persona just shrugs them off. Linnea can't get in close enough. She's one step too far out. Oh my. What a brutal right straight from Persona. Lord have mercy. Linnea staggers back. She felt that one, ladies and gentlemen, and Persona won't let up. What now, Linnea? Do you run for it? No. No, she stands her ground. A left jab. And another. Ooh, that's a sharp one. Persona's taking some hits out there. Linnea's a tenacious boxer in her own right. She might not have Persona's power, but she's done running. Persona flinches back, and yet her eyes are glimmering. She's a bloodhound, folks, and she's got her prey on the ropes. Linnea lashes out with her right as Persona steps forward. Oh my god, will you look at all that blood? Did Linnea just slash her with her knife? No, it was her claws. She extended her claws and scratched Persona as that punch landed. It's the deadly kitty punch, honed to perfection. And it's legal, folks. There are no holds barred in this brawl. Linnea punches and slashes, punches and slashes. It's a barrage from both sides. She's got Persona grimacing now. This is a whole new kind of pain, and she wasn't expecting it. Good lord. Linnea just tore a big rip in her uniform. We're in more drug malfunction territory here. We might have to cut to commercial, folks. Oh my, Persona's going for it anyway. She doesn't care. She's a boxer now, not a bashful teenager. Bam! She slams a right hook into Linnea's body. You can see the agony on her face. Is this it? Is Persona going to finish it? If this is no holds barred, why aren't they using... This is no hold barred. Why aren't they using any magic? No, no, she asked. Good question. When Persona turned this into a melee brawl at the very start, it made their magic all but irrelevant. They're not giving each other the time they'd need to complete an incantation. Sylphie or I could still throw in a few silent spells in this situation, but these two are fighters by nature. And what with all this strenuous exercise, it would be hard for them to say a single word right now. Can a marathon runner hope to recite a poem as they jog along the road? No, it wouldn't be. Okay, I get it. Sorry for interrupting you like that. You can keep going now. Linnea stopped moving entirely. It's an in fight now, folks. They're trading blow for blow. It is all hope lost. Persona's punches have neutralized Linnea's speed. She can't play the hit and run game anymore. Has the butterfly lost her wings? Has she fallen helplessly in the jaws of her foe? No, it's not over yet. She's dodging the punches, folks. She's actually dodging them. With her cat-like reflexes, she ducks and weaves. With her finely honed technique, she slips and rolls. She hasn't taken a solid hit yet. And now, the counter! A brutal kitty punch! A spray of blood! She caught Persona's cheek and sent her leaping backward. Linnea steps forward to press her advantage. Oh my, a Brazilian high kick! She wants to knock that girl out. Ooh, Persona lunges forward. She throws herself into the attack. My god, she bit Linnea's leg. She bit it as she swung towards her neck. She's an attack dog, folks. She's a beast. She's a wolf. Her fists aren't her only weapon. Persona presses forward and drags her prey to the ground. Did Linnea get too close? But Persona isn't the only one with the killer teeth. She's biting right back. Just look at those choppers. It's a wrestling match now, and it's only going to get more vicious. To be honest, it looks like they're just tumbling around and smacking each other to me. Well, yeah, you could put it that way too. Look, I hate to be Milk, I hate to be a killjoy, but can I ask you something? Sure. What's up? They seem to be taking this fight very seriously. Why are you making it into a big joke? Sorry. Duel raged on for quite some time. In a sense, it had begun with their exchange of insults and then proceeded to the punching phase. At first, this had resembled a high school or high-level boxing match, but by the end, it had devolved into something more like a nasty playground brawl, complete with scratching and biting. For what felt like hours, the two of them rolled around in the snow, grappling with each other, but then, at long last, they came to a stop. Only one of them rose to her feet. Heh, heh, I fucking did it. It was Persona. She was covered from head to toe in scratches, bites, and bruises. Her clothes were ragged, wet with snow, and stained with blood. Some of her injuries were still bleeding. It was an awe-inspiring sight. This was a woman who fought for her life and emerged triumphant. Persona looked down at her foe and looked conflicted for a moment, but she turned her face aside haughtily. A moment later, she staggered her way over to us. I'm the winner, boss. Yeah, congratulations. Sit down for a second, all right? I'll heal you up. I reached out to an open wound on her shoulder, but she slapped my hand away. Thanks, but no thanks. These are scars of honor. I'd rather keep them. Oh, right. Scars of honor, huh? They really had been deadly serious about this. Felt a little ashamed for casually assuming nobody would get hurt here. I don't know if I'll ever see Linnea again, you know? At least I'll have these to remember her by. Well, aren't you going to stick together until you leave town at least? Nope. On our separate ways right here now. Got our bags all packed and everything. They must have agreed on that beforehand. This is where their paths would diverge. So it might well be the place where they would say goodbye. There was some poetry to that. It seemed like I'd have to cancel my plans for a farewell party. It would ruin the whole thing. Make sure you get someone to patch you up, all right? Even if it's not Mage. Yeah, I know. With that, Prasenna staggered off in the direction of the dorms. As I looked, Nanahoshi ran to join her. She draped her jacket over Prasenna's shoulders, and they set off together with Prasenna leaning on her for support. The girl did have a kind side. Now then. I walked over to where Linnea was lying and studied her from above. You alive? She wasn't unconscious or anything, just staring up at the sky with an absent-minded look on her face. Yeah, she said after a moment. I guess so. The girl looked just as bad as Prasenna, if not worse. Her clothes were ripped and ragged. One of her shoulders was bleeding profusely, staining the snow red. Her face was swelling up from all the punches she'd taken. There was some blood trickling from her mouth as well. I felt like it was probably from a cut inside it, rather than any internal injuries. You don't look so hot, you know. Don't feel too hot either. On closer examination, I realized that Linnea's clothing was no longer adequately hiding certain parts of her anatomy. I took off my coat and placed it over her. Didn't want myself getting distracted here. It was a bit chilly out here without it. Hopefully Nanahoshi wasn't going to make her cold worse. Thanks, boss. Linnea slowly, shakily moved her arms upward and joined her hands behind her head. She crossed her legs as well. It almost looked like she was lounging on a sofa instead of a dirty pile of snow. Man, guess I lost you. Her words floated up into the air as a cloud of vapor then dissipated. It was a hell of a fight, though, I offered. Give me a break, boss. I heard your old running commentary. Sounded like you were really enjoying yourself. Fair enough. Maybe I hadn't taken this too seriously. Still, their match was exciting to watch. It was kind of like a really vicious catfight, maybe. Or a passionate struggle between two desperate title contenders. Let's try to avoid the boxing metaphors, actually. It would probably just piss her off. At least I gave you some laughs to remember me by, huh? Excuse me. At least I gave you some laughs to remember me by, huh? Sorry. I feel kind of bad now. It's fine. I'm sure it just looked like a crazy brawl from the sidelines, yeah? Having fun is what life's all about. As she spoke those words, Linnea grimaced. She had tried to lick at a nasty cut on her arm. You want to pass on the healing magic, too? I asked cautiously. Well, I don't like carrying around reminders of my defeats, to be honest. But yeah, I guess I'll make an exception for these. Maybe I'll be able to brag about them a couple years down the line. I left a few scars on Beastfolk warriors myself over the years. I wonder if any of them showed them those off proudly. Linnea fell silent and stared up at the sky. I looked up as well. It was a gray one today, the typical Northern Territory sky. We'd be getting more snow tonight, no doubt. What are you planning to do with yourself now, Linnea? What do you mean? Well, you said something about living the way you want to. Do you have something in mind? Yeah, sure. Figure I'll travel around for a while, then start up my own store. It was very hard to imagine Linnea starting a small business successfully. I could see her as an adventurer, maybe, but I hope you have an actual plan worked out. Of course I do. Well, she sounded confident, at least. Maybe she'd be okay if she had a plan. I still wasn't feeling too reassured. I had this gut feeling she was going to blunder along with a bunch of half-assed ideas and land herself in deep trouble. Way I figure, I'll be rolling in money in 5 years or so. Well, okay. You can always come to me for help if you need to, just so you know. Yeah, once I hit it big, I'll let you borrow money from me. Despite the fact that she just lost the most important duel of her life, Lena didn't seem too depressed. Maybe she was happy to be free of her responsibilities to the Doldia tribe, at least for now. Or maybe she was just putting on a brave face on things. Either way, it looked like she accepted that one chapter of her life had reached its end. Lenny and Prasenna didn't say their farewells to the others. They headed straight back to their dorm after the duel, one a bit later than the other. There, they disinfected and bandaged their wounds, grabbed their bags, and left the campus at different times. I saw Linnea off, and Nanahoshi did the same for Prasenna. Neither of them were particularly chatty. They asked us to say goodbye to Zenova and Cliff for them, but that was about it. Our friends would probably be a bit sad that they missed their chance to return the favor. Prasenna was presumably headed straight back to the Great Forest, where she trained thoroughly to assume the leadership of the tribe. Linnea's future was more uncertain, but I wanted to believe she'd find her own path forward. It seemed like they were resigned to never see each other again. That was a real shame, considering how close they'd been. Still, I couldn't help admiring their resolve and determination. Bit of a digression here, but that same evening, I happened to overhear someone talking in the street. Quote, yeah, so I saw those two beast folk women covered in bandages arguing about something in the back of a passenger carriage. They probably neglected to check the timetables of the carriages out in the town, and ended up stuck on the same one. So much for their dramatic parting of ways. Legend of the University number 11. The boss always settles his scores. Now we're done. Ugh. Oof. Fucking wrestling thing came out of fucking nowhere. I was almost going, oh, she's whipping her cock out.
Oh, she's whipping her cock out. There
Yeah.
we go. Yeah. Good stuff.
Yeah, baby, that's what we've been waiting for. You know.
Hi, Soul Wolf. Sorry we weren't like very talkative when somebody's reading. We just let them read.
Yeah.
But I do like WWE Tensei. That's really funny. All right.
Yeah.
We'll be back next week finishing up this volume. Literally, we don't have much to do next week. We've got one chapter and one extra chapter, and that's it. Like, you more or less chewed through the rest of the book and left very little for everybody to do, but that's okay.
Sorry, I just kind of
No, that's very okay because I might be closing again next week. So
no.
Okay.
Oh no. So we will just have to have starting off with Sonic and then closing out with Moon, I guess. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
it depends on when I can get home.
Also, Amazon is doing.
I might just
Guys, this is something that we got to talk about on Friday. What the fuck? Amazon is doing AI anime dubs.
Yes.
Oh,
no, why?
The No Game No Life movie had it.
What?
Seriously?
I believe so. At least from what I saw on
Twitter.
No.
Dude, no, stop it.
Get some help.
Like, I have actually not looked into it too much myself at the moment, but
it's ass. That's super lame.
That's not even like the official dub, right? Like, there's a whole other dub out there, right? Or is that it?
Excuse me.
I don't believe there. Let me actually double check that. Now I say that. I think that. No Game, No Life movie dubbed. Let's see here. Prime Video.
All right, looking at who we're gonna raid.
English dubbed. Oh god, here we go. Oh wait, no, that's the series. Hold on, I need to pull back. Oh no, there's a movie. God. Watch now. Oh god.
Okay.
Well,
let's see. Am I getting the right thing? Okay, no, that's.
You know what? Let's raid Bone Daddy. Let's raid Bone Daddy. Let's go raid.
Ooh.
Let's go raid Connor.
Yes, Bone Daddy.
Because, well, I mean, it's coming out on Wednesday, 4 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday. So there we go. So
yeah.
Overlord will be up on YouTube at 4 p.m. on Wednesday.
Wait, did High Dive seriously not actually dub No Game No Life? Really?
No Game No Life started on Funimation.
Yeah.
Did it?
Well,
Yeah.
I'm looking at the
It's been
Amazon
a long time since I've seen
Prime
that.
thing. It's why.
So is this movie like a recap or is it like a continuation?
Oh, it's a prequel.
It's a prequel.
Oh, interesting. Okay. So I remember it a long time ago, or I haven't seen that anime for a long time.
Yeah, I only had like the one season too.
Yeah. Yep. A lot of people were holding out on it, so.
Okay, it doesn't look like I can currently see it on English for whatever reason because it says English subtitled.
But yeah.
so I can't currently pull it up and be like, yeah, there it is. But I think it's like there's also YouTube videos where it's like, no, I did bad. This is a bad situation.
Bad.
Bad, okay.
This is bad. There's the trailer, which that's
Those
from
are
like
bad,
2017. Guys, look, AI voices are bad, okay? Unless they're approved by the people who the voices originated from. Like with Darth Vader, for example, in Fortnite. Okay.
Okay.
That actually was a good one. I actually had a very fun game with Fortnite and AI Darth Vader, and I won by doing literally nothing, just standing on top of a hill while watching everyone else fight among themselves.
Yeah, sometimes that happens.
It was the best. It's like, yeah, high five, Vader.
Usually wins by doing absolutely nothing. Well,
I think we talked about, like, does the dark side actually have cookies and whatever? And he's like, I guess if that would lure you to our side, yes. We do, in fact, have cookies. Like,
only
hell
chocolate.
yeah!
Only like dark chocolate.
I think I recorded footage for that, too, for a video. I need to go find that and double check that.
My problem with that response is that is not... Like... the Sith don't necessarily want more Sith. Dark side users, maybe... But as it stands, there's only ever going to be 2 Sith. Maybe a third in secret.
Like to replace the master and like the current master and student thing, yeah.
Exactly.
I don't believe he explicitly said Sith. It might have been more for the Empire, to be fair.
Sith.
For the Empire, sure. That would make more sense.
That's what if I'm remembering it correct. It has been a while. Like, I'd have to go and find the actual like recording me and my friend did for that. Just like, does the dark side do in fact have cookies? I know that was asked like pretty much exactly like that. Is it a video? Is it just my video folders? I'm hoping it is, because I'm pretty sure I just streamed or I'd have to like.
Oh.
I miss NVIDIA. I miss having my NVIDIA recorder. It was just